What if the biggest loser in your family turned out to be the most dangerous person alive? That was Mingfei. This kid was seen as a scrawny, pencil-neck bum by his family and society just because he enjoyed playing games from time to time. Mingfei, on the other hand, couldn't care less as he sat at his desk mashing his keyboard. Little did he know he had a dark power within him capable of slaying dragons in real life. But right now, he was just trying to beat his online friend and failing miserably. He lost this time around. So, just to feel better, he logged off to simp over his school crush who probably didn't even know he existed. Before he could soak up all her beauty with his eyeballs, he received a message from an unknown called Nono, who challenged him to a game. Mingfei ended his simping session and promptly accepted with zero hesitation. After all, crushing a player online was easier for him than sliding into his crush's DMs. Huge mistake thinking it would be easy though. This Nono was that good Mingfei had to physically stand up from his chair. His lightning speed keyboard mashing meant nothing because the player was literally predicting his every move before he even made them. The boy was completely stunned. The player vanished before he could even ask questions, and their profile, blank. Now here's where it gets interesting. We find out that Nono was actually Chen Motong, an A-rank dragon slayer from the prestigious Castle College. She wasn't just playing games for fun, she was testing him, because the school principal was desperate to recruit Mingfei. Turns out this so-called loser wasn't a loser at all. He was sitting on S-rank potential that nobody around him even noticed, not even himself. Nono, however, didn't see anything special about him, so she asked the school's AI system named Norma to tell her more information about this bum. Nono learned that he was an 18-year-old boy who had no real-life friends, though he wasn't bothered by this because he was happy living in his own world. He resided with his uncle's family who more or less disliked him, but they had no choice other than to tolerate him since they were using the money Mingfei's parents gave to him on themselves. The boy was sent to the stores to buy some petty items, and on his way, he stopped by the post to see if he received any letters from the university he applied to. He was handed 2 letters. One was a rejection letter, and the other had a phone inside of it. Although Mingfei didn't get into the international school he applied to, he was instead given a scholarship to attend Castle College. He smacked himself to make sure it wasn't a dream. He took it home to tell his family about the good news, but the auntie thought it was a scam. Mingfei really didn't have time for their bad energy, so he walked off to play games. The phone rang, which made him pause. Auntie answered it with the aggression of a honey badger, but she soon calmed down when the caller informed her that Mingfei had an interview the following day. So that night, he went up to the roof to share the good news with his online buddy named Tang, who was extremely happy for him. The day came, and when he made it to the location, which was a hotel, he was surprised to see other members from his school present for the interview. What made him happy was that his crush named Wenwen was there too. He told her not to be nervous because he knew she was a good talker. Not long after it was his turn, and when he entered, he felt a heavy presence which saw him almost stumble to the floor, but one of the interviewers caught him. He settled in moments later for the assessment. They asked him 3 dumb questions he refused to answer, but instead put out his tongue before walking out of the interview and thanking them for wasting his time. He couldn't believe they asked him if magic powers were real. As he made his way out, Nono and Professor Guderian walked in, but they missed him. The professor barged into the room asking how the interview went. When he was informed that Mingfei walked out, Guderian couldn't believe his ears and asked why they didn't go on their knees and beg him to stay. All the while, Mingfei didn't even know he was so sought after as he spoke to Wenwen. It turns out that she did know he existed and invited him to a leaving party before they graduated. Mingfei agreed before she could even finish, and while she said goodbye to him, he stood there dreaming that all he wanted was to marry the girl. He arrived home to find out from his auntie that he passed the interview, which took him by surprise. The very next day, he and the family were invited for a meal by Professor Guderian. The professor was extremely elated to be in the presence of Mingfei and outlined that the boy would receive $36,000 a year just for attending. The auntie was very happy to hear this. She felt that she would get a piece of that money. Mingfei was curious as to why they accepted him. Guderian not only answered saying he had immense potential, but apparently, Mingfei was a once-in-a-century talent. That proclamation left the entire family stunned. After all, they saw him as a useless nobody. The professor wasn't done. He also revealed that Mingfei's parents were graduates of the school. He handed the boy a picture of them, causing Mingfei to completely zone out. Guderian pulled out a letter they wrote to the principal, which he gave to the boy. He told Mingfei that his parents love him very much, which left him stunned as he felt that they abandoned him. Mingfei excused himself to the bathroom to go read the letter. His mom wrote to the principal to allow her son to attend the college, She believed he had great potential that would only grow if he attended the school. The boy broke down in tears after reading the part where his mother told the principal to tell him that she and his father loved him. His emotional moment was halted when Nono approached him to let him know that he was in the ladies' bathroom. She escorted him back to the meal where Guderian introduced her to them. When Mingfei heard the name Nono, he thought maybe this was the player he faced, but he talked himself out of it, believing he was overthinking it. Nono noticed that he was absent-minded, so the professor asked if Mingfei didn't want to attend their school. The boy responded saying that he needed time to think, but his auntie wasn't happy about his answer, for the reason that the 36 grand was about to slip away from her selfish fingers. Nono already knew through her research that he was hesitant because he didn't want to leave Wenwen behind. He jumped out of his seat to deny it as though he was being accused of liking Season 3 of One Punch Man. Everyone believed him, but Nono knew he was capping, so she revealed herself to being the player who knew his next move. Later that night, he went to his thinking spot on the roof wondering who this girl is and how she had so much information on him. He admitted that she wasn't wrong and why he didn't want to accept, and began to daydream about Wenwen when Nono appeared behind him, startling him. She alerted him that the AI always knew his location, and she only came by order of Professor Guderian to convince him to accept the offer. She told him bluntly that Wenwen didn't like him at all, so he should give up his dream of being with her and come to the college instead. He didn't believe her, but she pointed out that Mingfei had never done anything special for the girl he likes, or even given her a present on her birthday. So how did he expect to stand a chance if he put in zero efforts to make her like him? Which was a valid point, to be fair. The boy felt like he was just too ugly to even try, but even still, he didn't want to give up a chance to love her. Nono saw the seriousness in his eyes that he truly believed what he was saying. The girl gave him some more advice, saying that he should gather flowers and confess his love to Wenwen for everyone to hear. She did remind him that if he succeeded in getting the girl he loved, then his chance of getting into the college would be over. He took the advice and accompanied Wenwen on a day out to prepare for the graduation party. His little date was interrupted by Nono, who warned him to give up on the girl after she had done some research on Wenwen the previous night. Nono reminded him that the professor was leaving tonight, and this was his only chance to ever get into the college. But Lover Boy wanted to follow his heart, even if it meant giving up on an amazing school. Nono had no choice but to accept his dumb decision, so she left him to it. Later that evening, Mingfei practiced how he was going to confess his feelings to her at the party. He later gathered dandelions from a local field and asked the DJ of the venue to play something romantic. Everything was set, and he was ready to pour his heart out. A guy named Zhao approached him in the restroom to hand over a suit Wenwen told him to wear to give the speech. Mingfei dressed up and headed to where everyone was waiting. His moment to shine had arrived as he stood there with his broke boy flowers ready to tell Wenwen his true feelings. However, as he jumped on the stage, Zhao emerged from the shadow with a bouquet of beautiful flowers and confessed his love for Wenwen. It turns out that Zhao had tricked Mingfei to wear a suit to be a prop in his love message to Wenwen. Wenwen was smitten by Zhao's confession and also proclaimed her love for him too, which completely broke Mingfei's heart. This dum-dum hadn't only lost the love of his life, but also the once-in-a-lifetime chance at a prestigious college. In that moment of darkness, the doors opened to Nono emerging out in a fancy dress looking for Mingfei. Everyone was stunned that a lady who looked that good was there to collect him. She had arrived with a few stylists who dressed Mingfei in a magnificent suit before telling everyone that he had more important places to be. She put her arm around his, and they elegantly walked out of the room, which left them all stunned. Mingfei didn't even bother to take a look back, because Wenwen wasn't even worth his gaze. Nono already had knowledge that Wenwen was interested in Zhao. She also knew Zhao was planning his confession, so that was why she turned up to save Mingfei from the embarrassment. The boy thanked her for what she did and accepted to attend the school after Nono revealed that she was joking about him only having one chance. The moment he accepted, the school AI system was made available to him. A helicopter arrived to pick him up, and while it took him to a different location, he saw from afar what looked like the remains of a dragon within the mountains. The day of his departure to his new school arrived, and with the way he was dressed, the security guard at the subway station of the airport thought he was homeless, which he found great offense in. The boy wanted help in finding the CC line, but the guard had never heard of such a thing and walked off. Everyone at the station thought he was homeless, which really irritated him. Mingfei was completely lost, since there was no one to help him find this special train line. It wasn't until another homeless-looking guy approached him and introduced himself as Finger von Frings. I could call him Finger, but I'll refer to him as Von.
No, I think we should call him Finger.
Editor T and Crumpets has spoken. Okay, Finger it is. He was about to scam Mingfei until he saw the Castle College card he was holding. Finger quickly told Mingfei that he too was a student at the college and was his senior. The two of them found a place to sit where Finger disclosed that he was in his 8th year. The normal time frame for students to graduate was a maximum of 5 years, but Finger was a dumbass who kept failing, so they held him back. Mingfei wasn't impressed, but he was glad that Finger had taken the CC line before. The senior also informed him that wait for low-ranking students like himself was long, but high-ranking students would have their professor come collect them in a special way. Before the new student could ask any more questions, Finger was snoring. Not long after, Mingfei also fell asleep, but he had an extremely vivid dream of panicked people holding flames, running and jumping inside a ditch which he didn't understand. He woke up only to see that his senior wasn't around. There was, however, a boy in fancy clothes sitting on the floor. He asked Mingfei a very strange question about if he was ready to face the reality of his past. Mingfei was confused, thinking the kid was hungry, so he offered money, but the stranger denied the help and called Mingfei his brother. The stranger opened his eyes, causing Mingfei to be engulfed in flames. It turns out that that was also a dream, and for a moment I thought I was watching Inception. He woke up shook to Finger screaming that the train was on its way. The gamer stood up confused, wondering if that was really a dream. The train conductor came out from the darkness like a ghost and told them it had arrived. We learned that Vaughn was currently an F rank, but he was A rank when he began. Mingfei introduced himself, and when the operator heard his name, he began to lose his mind because the gamer was an S rank. Finger joined in saying that Mingfei was at the same level as the principal and was shocked that no one came to collect him. The conductor informed him that if he had approached and swiped his card, a special train would have come to collect him right away, which got the boy angry because he wasted 3 hours of his life just waiting. What the man said proved to be true, as the special train was promptly available when he swiped his card. They took an escalator down to the platform. The conductor used a strange power he called the Voice to possess a few people to welcome Mingfei. Before he could ask about this voice, the special train arrived with Professor Guderian emerging out of it with joy that Mingfei actually showed up. They boarded, and he was given his uniform. Things got serious as Guderian let him know that he was going to reveal some important information before they arrived at the college. The prof even pulled out a disclosure agreement which Mingfei had to sign for the reason that what he was about to say couldn't get out into the open world. Guderian revealed that their school was unusual, and that they specialized in researching and eliminating dragons. The gamer couldn't believe his ears as visible sweat was seen on his face. The professor continued that for thousands of years, dragons and humans had been at war. A group of heroes in the past fought hard and eliminated the Dragon Emperor. The objective of the college was to train students to be heroes who could fight the dragons and keep humanity safe. While this explanation was going on, Mingfei was positive that Guderian had lost his marbles. He suggested that the professor should go seek psychological help, but then all of a sudden, the boy from the airport appeared in front of him saying that what the prof disclosed was all true. He told Mingfei the story of Nidhogg, the first dragon. He was a black dragon emperor who was slain by humans on the peak of his mountainous throne some thousands of years back. They left his corpse there after their victory, and that day was known as the start of the First Era. The stranger enlightened Mingfei that if the humans hadn't won, the world as it is wouldn't have existed. Mingfei wanted to know if the boy had associations to the Black Dragon, but he denied it, which brought the vision to an end. Mingfei woke up and was told by Guderian that he passed out during their talk. Guderian let him know that this was the first time he had ever seen a student faint from hearing what he said. The gamer assured him that he wasn't afraid, he just thought that the prof was crazy and was taking him somewhere weird. Guderian laughed and offered to show him evidence, the first of which was a dragon scale. He asked the gamer if he could use a gun, and a brief flashback showed that Mingfei never missed his mark in military training. They gave him one to shoot, and when he fired it, the bullet just bounced off the scale without a scratch. He was impressed, thinking it was some sort of high-end technology, but he wasn't convinced. Guderian was hoping that the next piece of evidence would change his mind. The person who brought them in explained that dragons were extremely difficult to eliminate, with the first and second races of dragons being the most challenging. This was because their souls always came back to life, even after their bodies were completely destroyed. Mingfei was shown a real-life sleeping baby dragon that was sealed inside a special glass, but when the new student saw it, he thought it was a well-made action figure. Guderian almost lost his mind at how dismissive the student was and told him to take a closer look because it was real. When Mingfei reached in to inspect it, the dragon opened its eyes and began acting erratically, trying to break out. This behavior had never happened before, so the prof was on high alert, afraid of the consequences of it getting free. But luckily for them, the seal activated, which put the dragon back to sleep. Guderian was positive that it reacted to Mingfei's presence and was amazed by his ability. As he was glazing the new student, Mingfei was unresponsive out of pure shock because everything he knew to be true was shattering in front of his very eyes. He almost collapsed again, but they caught him. The gamer needed some fresh air to clear his head, so he and Guderian went on a walk once they reached the academy. He asked if he could just quit, but the prof informed him that doing so would get his memories wiped out as per their agreement. He obviously didn't want that, which left him with no choice other than to at least stick around for a while to see how things progress. Guderian reminded him again that the world he once knew was extremely small compared to reality. He then opened the door to Castle College and welcomed Mingfei to the real world. He stepped out into a vast metropolis that looked like Hogwarts on steroids located within the mountains. They continued their walk where Guderian informed him that his ultimate mission was to slay the Dragon Emperor. Mingfei didn't really know how to respond to that. He did, however, notice that the place was very quiet and wondered where the others were. It was only after he pointed it out that the professor realized something was wrong. Before he could even mention it, an alarm sounded and bullets came flying by. He pushed himself and the new student to safety and revealed that there was a war instigated by the president of the student union who had an issue with some of the classes. The compound was overrun by students in military gear having a full-out war. Guderian was shot as he tried to explain. Mingfei just couldn't believe what he was seeing and entered panic mode as he feared for his life. Most of the students were taken out, but only the two leaders were still alive. They decided to meet in the plaza for a final showdown. Meanwhile, Mingfei was glad it was over and went to look for a doctor for the professor. But he had to hide behind a pillar when the student union president named Caesar and his rival named Zihang began to fight. He couldn't comprehend their superhuman abilities as they clashed at speeds his eyes could barely track. Nono dropped down in front of him and pointed the gun to his head before telling him to drop down. He promptly did as he was told when a bullet flew and hit Nono in the chest, deflating one of her airbags. She fell to the floor, and another lady came out saying she had won after shooting Nono. Mingfei was having an episode after witnessing that. The boy who always appeared to him offered to give him the power to take revenge. Mingfei accepted and picked up the pistol to shoot the lady. He then shot the sniper gun with one hand at both Caesar and Zihang, which took them out. He was the only one alive, so he went to sit down next to a pillar to process all that had happened. Music began to play loudly, and a crowd of first aid females run onto the battlefield to revive the fallen students. They complained about how they got tired of doing this every year. Mingfei was even left more confused when Professor Klein came in, complaining about what the students had done. At this point, Guderian had woken up and explained to Mingfei that what he witnessed was an event held once a year that allowed the students to do whatever they liked. No one was actually injured because the bullets were only powerful tranquilizers with red paint. Klein wasn't impressed by the damage they had caused, so he called the principal to complain, but the man just laughed and didn't see an issue with what the students did. He even expressed his wish to join them the following year. He informed the students that the school would cover any damages, and that was when Mingfei saw that the principal was a chilled guy. He requested to speak to Mingfei and convinced the new student to take his class. He wasn't at all surprised that an S rank like him managed to take down 2 A rank students on his first day. Because of his amazing feat on day 1, the rest of the students were jealous and wanted to whoop him. Meanwhile, at Principal Anju's location, he was having a conversation with another professor named Lars. He expressed that the reason why he allows the students to have such a festival is so that they can be free and think outside the box, which would prove handy in battles against the dragons. He didn't want them to be strict like the students from 8 years ago, who all perished in battle. But with the current setup, the school produced 2 geniuses who were Caesar and Zihang, but the principal believed Mingfei was the true genius who would lead them to victory. Lars didn't understand why the principal put so much trust in an ordinary boy. Anju let him know that he would reveal the truth about Mingfei's ability later. We cut back to Mingfei, who made his way to his room and found out that the useless Finger was his roommate. Finger decided to show the new guy around the huge establishment. Mingfei couldn't understand how ordinary-looking humans could defeat dragons, so Finger informed him that most students possessed an ability known as Yanling that gave them powers from elemental control all the way to spatial creation and mental interference. The only way to use these abilities was through the dragon language and gestures. He took Mingfei to a special area where students trained abilities. He was amazed by the various amounts of powers the students showcased. Guderian interrupted their tour and took him inside to hand over his official ID. The professor informed him about a mysterious test he would be taking the next day, and if he failed, he would be expelled. The teacher whipped out an ancient box which played the terrifying call of the black dragon to prep him, but when Mingfei heard the sound, It didn't affect him or trigger his dragon bloodline, which had the professor concerned. He ran out of the room like he had diarrhea, terrified by what this meant. Before Mingfei could react, Finger was already posting his failure to respond to the Emperor's call for all students to read. Mingfei, on the other hand, was worried about the test. There was no way he could go back to his old life after the L he took with Wenwen. His roommate felt his pain and offered to help him cheat. Meanwhile, Guderian dragged Klein to the library to talk about Mingfei's true identity. Their research suggested something crazy no one considered. The boy was a descendant of the legendary white dragon who got whooped and eaten by Nidhogg. His bloodline was said to have been extinct, yet here was Mingfei, having no reaction to the black dragon's call. Klein wanted to turn the boy into an experiment, given that this had never happened to anyone before, but Guderian begged, saying that they would only report it if the boy failed his test. Later that night, a mysterious shadowy figure ordered the AI to make sure Mingfei passed the test no matter what, and somehow, Norma agreed with no questions, because this unlocked character had rizzed up an AI hologram. Test day came, and Mingfei arrived late like he was the MC. That's because he was. Panic filled the room when the exam moderator gave them blank sheets, telling them that the audio would trigger visions before leaving the room. But as for Mingfei, he was cool as a cucumber thanks to the cheat notes Finger gave. The test began, and the students were losing their minds with this one guy doing the snake. Pencil Neck, on the other hand, had another vision, where he met the strange boy who finally introduced himself as Lu Mingze. He explained that Mingfei's visions were a reflection of what was in his heart, and told him to dig deep to find answers. He then woke up from the vision, and was given the good news that he passed even though he slept through more than half of the exam. Elsewhere, Professor Lars had gone on a mission at sea with other students to hunt a dangerous dragon. The brave students named Sheng and Aki volunteered to dive deep to explore the ruins buried under. Sheng used his snake Yanling to search the area for any information. Just as they were making progress, Lars, who was in a spaceship just above the water, told them to surface immediately as there was a huge earthquake approaching. They prepared to leave, but that's when everything took a left turn. The natural disaster had arrived with no invitation, resulting in their ropes being cut and the team above losing contact. Upon hearing this bad news, Lars instantly blamed himself, saying he repeated the same mistake he did 8 years ago. However, it looked like Faith had other plans. Sheng was able to communicate with the professor using his snake power to assure him that they were fine. But the biggest news was that the pair had found the entrance to the Dragon Emperor of Bronze and Fire. Lars promptly contacted the principal to update him on their mission. He allowed them the permission to use the key, which was a baby with a high level of dragon blood purity, to open the entrance. He sealed it in a secure box and dived into the water to meet up with Sheng and Aki. He gave them new ropes to connect to the ship, and then used his ability to reveal the real entrance. The baby's time to shine came when he opened the gate to allow the journey to continue. Just looking at the entrance, you know something crazy was about to happen. Lars's job was over, so he returned to the ship for the two students to proceed with their mission. They had dived their way into a creepy chamber. Sheng moved forward and informed Aki to save herself if anything was to go wrong. She reluctantly agreed and began taking pictures of an ancient artifact for the team to analyze. Something bad happened while doing her task. Her mind was corrupted, causing her to cut her rope before losing consciousness. Sheng returned just in time to save her from a statue that was controlling her. He showed her the artifact he found, which most likely had a baby dragon inside. Just when everything looked like it was going fine, things took a turn for the worse when the ruined security system activated after detecting intruders. They desperately tried to escape by weaving through the maze that had every intention of trapping them. We cut back to the college, where an alarm alerted all students A rank or higher to report to the computer room. Mingfei was busy snoring when he had another vision. Lu Mingze told him that death was approaching and offered to help by unlocking a skill for Mingfei to see a detailed map of anywhere he wanted. Finger woke him up for them to answer to the call, but Nono didn't understand why he was tagging along since he was a worthless F rank. Finger ran off back to bed to recover some HP from that emotional damage. All relevant students had gathered and were informed that their task was to find an escape route for the two students who were trapped in the ever-changing maze of the Bronze and Flames Dragon Emperor. Their only clue to solving the code was the pictures Aki took, which had dragon inscriptions on it. The team only had 20 minutes to succeed before the diver's oxygen ran out. Doing it in 20 minutes was an impossible task, considering it usually took about 50 years to decode that ancient language. Mingfei recalled that Sheng and Aki were the two who interviewed him, and then sulked in his chair because he didn't have a clue what to do to save them. He even felt more useless when everyone was typing away on their computers trying to solve this code. But that's when he remembered he had the cheat skill Lu Mingze granted him. He typed in a simple prompt into the system, which instantly unscrambled the code. The rest of his colleagues now understood why he was the only S-rank student there. Without delay, the roots were sent to Sheng, who noticed that the escape path kept on changing. The baby had to come in clutch again to show them which exact path to take. I just hope they're paying this child with some premium breast milk. Exit route secured. But that was only half the battle. They only had little oxygen but had to travel quite far. Professor Lars was optimistic that they would make it if they were efficient. Sheng ended the transmission to reserve energy, and that is where reality hit. Aki knew they didn't have enough oxygen to escape, and wanted to spend her last moments with him in the ruin. After all, she was in love with him. Sheng stole a kiss before she could confess her feelings. He had a positive outlook, and promised that he wouldn't allow her to die in such a place. Meanwhile, at the surface, they lost connection with the school, but Lars soon realized that his calculations was wrong, and asked his team to lower the ship and to get the rescue boats ready to pull them out of the water since Sheng and Aki had to swim deeper in order to escape. They waited for a long time, and just as they were about to stop the search, Aki surfaced and handed over the vase they found. Tears filled her eyes as she screamed to the professor to leave the area because something terrifying was alive in the water. Within one blink of an eye, she was dragged back down as her blood filled the water. Lars was reliving the nightmare he so desperately wanted to avoid. His beloved students had perished. He wasn't given time to grieve when whatever took Aki was on their tail. It clearly wanted what they stole. Lars opened fire, but his special bullets barely scratched the creature. Their only option was bombs, which looked like it eliminated the beast. Lars and his assistant went outside to assess the situation, only for her to be pierced through the heart. The dragon began laughing while Lars wept, knowing very well they were in trouble. With some of the missiles still left inside the dragon's belly, detonating it so close to them would have eviscerated the entire crew. Their faith changed when one of the members noticed they were near a dam. Lars ordered the pilot to go full speed ahead with the dragon hot on their tail. With the help of the baby, they were able to trap it within the gate before blowing it up. One of its fangs flew out, piercing Lars through the chest. There's no way he was surviving that. Back at the student's location, they waited anxiously for any news when Principal Anku popped up on the screen to inform them that thanks to their efforts, the mission was a success. After being dismissed, Zihang approached Mingfei and invited him to be the new leader of the Lionheart Society while he stepped down from the position. The new student refused without hesitation, which Zihang respected. All of a sudden, the bell began to ring, and pigeons were released, which symbolized that someone from the academy had perished. The students didn't know it, but Lars and the others would never return. The principal took a helicopter to go see his friend in his last moments, since no doctor could help him. He gave his report of the dragon lair they had found, and requested the students be told that he had gone on a special mission. In his final breath, he wanted Nono to choose a different mentor. The strange item they collected was taken to the university for further analysis, but the principal suspected that it was most likely a cocoon for Norton, the dragon of bronze in flames. All the while, it appeared that our boy had become quite the popular lad. He woke up to an email from Nono inviting him to a dance organized by the student union, which was a clear strategy for Caesar to recruit him. Mingfei wanted to pass, but Finger the sly dog convinced him to go. Since Mingfei was as broke as Sakura was useless, he borrowed a suit to attend. He and Finger arrived to Caesar performing a grand romantic gesture for Nono. Forget a red carpet. This guy littered the floor with red roses for his fiancée to walk on. Once inside, the classical music was playing, and the dance floor was full. A girl named Rin came to save Mingfei from Finger, after she witnessed how the senior was stepping and cracking Mingfei's toes like he was giving Cairo treatment. The floor was cleared for the two to dance. She took the lead, but honestly, Mingfei was looking like he had done this his whole life. The dance came to an end, and everyone cheered after witnessing that spectacle. Mingfei couldn't really soak it all in when he saw Nono leaving. Today happened to be her birthday, so he followed to wish her a good day. The girl could easily answer Andrew Tate's question because she was about to leave in a Bugatti. She asked Mingfei to drive her to a mountain summit outside of school grounds to go on a walk. He had another encounter with Lu Mingzi, who noticed that Mingfei clearly had a thing for Nono. He promised to help the guy secure her and then unlocked another ability for him. While that was going on, what was supposed to be an eventful night turned into chaos. The AI system alerted those at the school of a dragon infiltration and put the entire establishment into lockdown mode before activating the defense system. A number of bikers emerged and split off into different directions. It didn't take long for 7 out of the 13 to be captured by the students. The leader of the infiltrators was hiding somewhere and contacted the mysterious person who ordered the job to inform them of how things were going. The 7 that were captured didn't really know much and were from different countries. They had never met their employer, adding more mystery to this attack. In one of the briefing rooms, A professor who looked like he was on infinite life support asked Klein to use his power to locate the criminals, since Norma was having problems pinpointing the rest. But no one within the school grounds could use their power thanks to a spell cast by Klein's father, which suppressed all abilities. He lived at the top of the bell tower and was known as the Night Watchman. With a name like that, you and I both know he's about to be overpowered. Klein gave his father a call to turn off his Yanling, which was known as the Law. Being a loving father, he agreed and released the spell. The leader of the criminals also had powers, so she activated it, which provided herself and those close to her with cover from being detected. Even Klein's snake detection abilities couldn't spot them. They made their way over to Caesar's location, believing that no one could see them. But Caesar had a special ability that heightened his senses, which he used to expose them. They had no choice but to reveal themselves. Each party had their guns drawn, and the two leaders began speaking. The leader of the uninvited guests introduced herself as Mai, who was Aki's older sister. Her people were there to swipe the dragon vase the school took in their recent mission. Even though she appeared as dangerous, the rounds her men were shooting tranquilized their opponent when the shootout began. Only Caesar and Mai were left to fight it out after he had immobilized her whole squad. Mai knew that the school had its most powerful people away on missions, meaning that the strongest ones there were Caesar and Zihang. Her task was to delay Caesar while Zihang was being delayed by a different person. The students who were with Zihang were told to evacuate the building. Not long after, his opponent, known as the Girl in the Mask, came. The whole thing was being monitored by the professors, who noticed that the masked girl didn't have a weapon, which was bad news, because she was most likely overpowered. It turns out that Zihang himself was up there, as we learned that his Yanling was top secret. It didn't take long for us to find out why when he released it, which engulfed and blew up the library the fight was taking place in. He had a very rare ability known as Emperor's Flame. Most people would have retreated after seeing his power, but not the masked lady. She released her power, which was the exact same as Zihang's. This was going to be an epic battle of flames. All the while, one of the infiltrators was given a special mission to retrieve the dragon vase. He was being instructed through a mobile phone and had access to the school's security thanks to a card he was given. He was showed the path to follow to get to his destination by the school's AI system. Even though it knew he was an enemy, it had no choice but to answer since he gained access with the card. His reward had increased to 5 million and would be doubled to 10 once he fulfilled his final instructions. The clumsy guy didn't get those final instructions when he fell into a body of water and lost his phone, but through instinct, he found the door he was looking for, which was underwater. He had a bad feeling about it and wanted to turn around until he heard a strange voice calling him brother, which triggered him to open the door. As this happened, Mingfei and Nono were having a conversation unaware of all that was going on. She knew the truth that Lars had passed away along with Sheng and Aki, but she somehow didn't feel anything about it. She herself didn't want others to mourn her death. She abruptly changed the subject, asking Mingfei to join the student union because Caesar was too arrogant to ask him directly. Alarm bells were ringing for him, as he felt that Caesar was using a pretty girl to get him to join. Nono simply told him that she wanted him to be a member so that she could boss him about. Mingfei probably didn't have an issue with that since he was the president of the Simp Association. While he wrestled with that, she expressed her wish to receive flowers for her birthday. That was when Mingfei used the skill Lu Mingze unlocked for him to display amazing fireworks Nono would never forget. In reality, it wasn't really her birthday, but was instead the day her mother passed away. She began celebrating it as her birthday with the hopes that her mother would watch over her. When Mingfei saw her in that emotional state, he too was reminded of his mother and decided to join the student union. After that eventful night, they thought it best to head back. While descending the mountain, Nono finally got signal and received a voicemail Caesar left, warning her about the attack on their school. All the while, the lone intruder was sucked up to the surface of the water, where he encountered a shark which ran away in fear of him. He didn't know why, but ever since he was a kid, animals had always been afraid of him. He would soon come to know the answer by the end of his mission. He eventually found his way to the final destination, where he saw the principal addressing a group of scientists who were gathered to see the dragon vase. They were concerned that the dragon inside would awaken, but Anju assured them that the cool temperature prevented that from happening. Norma had produced a scan of the item and revealed that it was indeed a cocoon that was split into two, but one half was empty. The principal was certain that Norton the dragon had escaped a long time ago, while his twin brother was still inside. The scientists were eager to open it, but he prevented them from doing so as it posed a danger to the school and then kicked them out. This was the perfect chance for the intruder to complete his mission. As he edged closer to claim his prize, he heard the voice again addressing him as brother. At this point, Even the 5 million he was promised wasn't enough for him to continue with the mission, as he was too afraid. He dropped a liquid item on the floor as he left. The phone he lost revealed his last order, which was for him to pour the content of the item into the cocoon and then destroy whatever was inside of it. A little later, the principal returned to do what the boy couldn't finish, but rather than eliminating what was inside, he offered his natural ketchup with the plans of awakening the dragon who was Constantine, the twin brother of Norton. As this was going on, Caesar was doing battle with Rin, who was moving at crazy speeds. Caesar, through his ability, was able to counter her using his acute sense of hearing, but she one-upped him when she pulled out a gun and pointed it at him. It looked like he was about to lose, but a sudden explosion blew them back, bringing their fight to an end. They had no choice but to call a truce. They went to investigate and saw footprints that melted the floor. What was even stranger was that a hole was burned through an impenetrable wall. The evidence was clear. Whoever did this came from the lab below them, wielding the power of the sun. All the while, Zihong was busy exchanging flames with the girl in mask. The professors could clearly see that she outranked him in the use of Ruler's flame and was even playing with him. Just below them, the one who couldn't finish his mission was dodging all the bullets like he had observation hockey or something while trying to escape. He made it to the exit without a scratch, but that was when S-rank Mingfei accidentally run him over, knocking the intruder to the floor. Without taking a second breath, he got out of the car to see if the person was okay, only to have a sharp weapon pointed to his pencil neck. Mingfei took one glance and then a second before he recognized the intruder as his online friend named Lao Tang. They couldn't believe they were finally meeting each other and did their handshake, but the reality of their situation became clear, so Tang took Mingfei as a hostage when the others drew in to capture him. He asked Mingfei to pretend to be a captive in desperate need, which would force the others to back off. They were about to drive off when an intense heat was felt from behind. They looked back only to see Constantine calling out, "Brother." Seeing that freaked the friends out, forcing Mingfei to step on the accelerator to escape. The rest of the students were shooting real bullets towards the dragon, but it melted due to his control of metal and the scorching heat that surrounded him. Even grenades had zero effect. Constantine wanted to show them a little bit of his power when he used Ruler's flame to cause an explosion that Zihong noticed during his battle. His opponent allowed him to pause their fight to get an update on what was going on. She denied that this was her doing and then fled the scene. Constantine's power was so great that even the law would have no effect on him, since he was one of the 4 ancient rulers created by Nidhogg himself. Elsewhere, Mai called her employer panicking about the situation. The boss, who was more like a friend, received a video of what was going on. She quickly deduced that someone deliberately revived Constantine and that he was unstable. The worst part was if he were to implode, everyone on campus would be eliminated. Mai scolded her to figure something out immediately. Meanwhile, Mingfei and the others were hiding behind a pillar since their fuel ran out. Tang informed him that he was a hunter skilled in obtaining mythical objects for clients. It didn't take long for Constantine to spot them, forcing them to make a run for it. At this point, Finger had joined the trio, who thought it best to hide inside the pool to counter the dragon's heat. They ran past Caesar and Mai, who were there to hold off Constantine. Mai eventually received an important call from her employer, who told them to use tranquilizer bullets rather than metal ones. Her theory was that the kinetic energy of the rubber rounds would at least drive the dragon away. As crazy of a plan as that was, it somehow worked. The other students also switched and began shooting like their lives depended on it. While everyone was doing their best, Mingfei and his 2 friends were fooling around in the pool. They got serious and hid underwater when they heard the footsteps of Constantine approaching. According to Finger, the water was his weakness, therefore he wouldn't be able to detect them. Mingfei slipped into another trance, but when he came out of it, his friends had already escaped. He saw footprints next to him and realized that the dragon had walked past him. He didn't even get the time to freak out when the principal approached and dragged him to a vantage point to explain a very special mission for the new student. He brought out a bullet made from the Philosopher's Stone capable of eliminating a dragon. Mingfei wasn't confident that he could carry on this task, but the principal had full confidence in him and instructed him to aim at the 3rd eye of Constantine on his signal. Apparently, only Mingfei could move once Anju activated his Yanling that slowed down time. As that was going on, Constantine became fed up and transformed into his dragon form. This was Mingfei's first time seeing one, and he just couldn't look away. If he didn't believe before, he most certainly believed now. The principal did exactly as he said and slowed down time. He evaded a flame attack from Constantine before he sliced open the dragon's 3rd eye and then gave the signal to Mingfei. The new student was frightened, which was normal given the stakes. Lu Mingze was the calming voice who told him everything would be okay, and then guided him to take the shot, which hit its mark dead in the center. Constantine was still alive, but had lost his ability. That was when the principal ordered the students to load real bullets ready for annihilation. Principal Anju waited for Constantine to drop in front of Tang before he commanded that they shoot. The bullets ripped through Constantine and made him look like he had been through a stressful week. The dragon protected him, calling him brother and telling him to run away while he disintegrated. Tang felt that the creature was confused, saying that they were not brothers as he 10 toes out of there. He ran whilst crying through the rain, and that was when everything came rushing back. He really was the reincarnation of Norton when we saw him release his powers as he yelled out for his brother. We cut to the principal who knew this all along. He was aware that each of the 4 rulers were a pair of twins and that Norton had downloaded the new antivirus and escaped from the vase 80 years ago. The Night Watchman was furious that Anju planned all of this because now Norton would come for revenge. The principal didn't want to seal the 4 rulers, but instead wanted them deleted from history. His aim was to end the war with the help of Mingfei. Dragons always sealed parts of their bodies in the form of the vase, which saw them revive every time they perished. But if they were eliminated before this happened, then they would never come back. The principal could have taken out Norton before he awakened, but he needed the bones of the dragon for research. That is why he did what he did, which is crazy work if you ask me.
Yeah, but no one asked you.
That's fair. No one asked you either. So get back to editing, you bottom-of-the-shelf, low-resolution Rimuru Tempest. Principal Anju later had a meeting with important, powerful elders about what happened, and then summoned Caesar to send him on a mission to explore the ruins that Lars's team discovered. He insisted that Caesar take Mingfei along with anyone from the student union he desired. Caesar briefed the S-rank on the dangerous mission he was chosen to embark on, but the new student strongly believed he didn't have the skills to go on the operation. He did quick maths, and pointed out that the school should have about 200 A-rank dragon slayers who would be more than capable. Although true, Caesar enlightened him that the principal chose him specifically, and he would have about 2 months to train. Mingfei desperately didn't want to go. No one could change his mind, not until Nono came in, saying that she promised to protect him, so if he quits, then that would be the end of her promise. Mingfei lived up to his OG simp status and decided to go. He was trained by the very best in the college to prepare him, and by the end of the training segment, our boy was ready. Even so, he expressed his fears of dying to Finger Sensei, who told him not to worry because he would be supporting him from the campus and would be with him in spirit. Mingfei got all sentimental and gave his S-rank student ID card to Finger to buy anything he wanted if he heard that Mingfei had died. The senior didn't waste time and began to order right away, which got Mingfei mad since he was to wait until his death. Finger gave the card back to his friend saying that he would survive so he shouldn't worry. Elsewhere, Norton was also preparing when he went to meet up with the dragon servant who was protecting his palace. He began his move by first returning to his fortress. All the while, mission day arrived, and the team was being briefed by Klein, who told them that they were very prepared to face anything thrown at them. Everything had been upgraded, including the battleship and their bombs. It was the task of Mingfei and Nono to destroy Norton's fortress with a bomb they were given. The S-rank was positive that he was going to perish. He was told that their oxygen tank was enough to last 3 hours, but what he was most relieved about was that it was unlikely they would encounter the dragon Lars's team faced. Mingfei's mind was put to rest when Professor Klein assured him that Norton wouldn't be an issue since he would be hibernating to gain his true powers and turn into a dragon for revenge. The mission was to stop that from happening by taking down his palace, otherwise Norton's ultimate Yanling could destroy the world. They dived in and used the key's blood to open the gate before they were violently sucked in. Nono lost consciousness, but Mingfei saved her and took her somewhere safe with no water. She came back to her senses and learned from Norma that the air quality was good because Norton had returned to his palace and activated the system. Although they could preserve oxygen, Mingfei was afraid that Norton was awake. They found themselves in a tunnel with a stream of fresh water running beneath their feet. The duo poured a substance into the water, which would guide them to the dragon's lair. The statues that lined the space turned their head towards them without them noticing. They ran past the tree Shang and Aki saw, and into an area where the flow of water stopped. They were met with a magnificent statue where Mingfei wanted to leave the bomb and scram out of there. Nono noticed that the flow was going downwards, so she forced Mingfei to dive in deeper with her after she kicked him into the water like she was playing football. They made it all the way down to a graveyard filled with burned skulls, which indicated that a battle had taken place a long time ago. There was no visible entrance, so Nono used the blood from an injury Mingfei sustained earlier on to open the gate. That is when something unusual happened. A vortex appeared that took them to a different location, resulting in all signals being lost with the ship above. Even their ropes were cut. Caesar and Professor Klein activated their abilities to look for the duo, but below them, Mingfei and Nono were safe as they found themselves on dry land they believed to be Norton's lair. A building was spotted, so they went in to investigate. Nono used a projection technique to gain information about those who inhabited this place. She was able to see how Norton and his brother would spend time together and learned from one another. She was more than certain that this was Norton's lair. Mingfei was amazed by her ability to reenact conversations from 2,000 years ago. Nono revealed that she didn't have a Yanling, but her projections were as true as One Piece, Naruto, and Dragon Ball Z being the top 3. Their objective now was to plant the explosive. Nono set the timer to about 45 minutes to give them enough time to escape, but as she set it down, that is when reality smacked her in the face. She noticed that the candle that was burning was recently lit, which meant that Norton was most likely awake. They were transported back to the water above them, but their ropes were suspiciously not there, almost like someone had taken them away. Then suddenly, the place began to fall apart when metal gears were raining on them. With zero access to Norma, they had no choice but to go back down and use the same exit Aki and Sheng took. They swam hoping to find an exit, but without a map, the duo was completely lost, and death was certain. Mingfei remembered the map skill Lu Mingzi unlocked for him, and shouted out the words which was Black Sheep Wall to activate it. By some miracle, he was able to communicate with Finger, who was ready to guide his friend out of danger. At the surface, Caesar wanted to dive to see what was taking them so long. Klein told him to hold his horses because the palace was falling apart, which made it dangerous. He let Caesar know that if an hour passed and they didn't hear anything, he'd allow him to go. Out of nowhere, Professor Klein fell to the floor complaining about a headache. His Megamind head was being used as a transmission device to send information between Finger and Mingfei. The senior hacked into the system to gain S-rank access to help guide Mingfei and Nono out of there. While that was going on, the crew above were having their own issues when the dragon began his attack, which blew one of their engines. Klein was too occupied leaving Caesar to take on the role of captain. He ordered them to lose the dragon, which was below them, but no matter how fast they flew, it followed them. Norton was on a hill overlooking. He dropped into the water and fused himself with his dragon servant, which killed it in the process, but the act elevated Norton's power and gave him control over the creature. At a different vantage point, Mai was given orders to eliminate Norton with a special bullet, but she was told to leave Mingfei alive. Speaking of Mingfei, he and Nono came across Sheng's corpse, clutching onto an item he intended to bring back. They took it, and then paid their respects to him, especially after finding out he gave his oxygen tank for Aki to reach the surface. They quickly took off when the ceiling of the corridor they were swimming in was collapsing on them. They eventually found the exit, but the keys were removed from it. Mingfei had to use his blood to open it, but he was no longer bleeding. He had to think of a way quickly, otherwise they would be crushed. Nono was doing a good job of holding the weight, but it was slowly overwhelming her. He had no choice other than to remove his mask and then bit his finger to release that natural ketchup which opened the gate for them to escape. The S-rank collapsed as a result of his sacrifice, but Nono was there with her hands to slap him awake in the most violent way. She informed him that his suit was defective, meaning they had to share her oxygen. Not only that, it protected them from the water pressure which Mingfei was struggling to handle. With Nono being an experienced free diver, she could handle the pressure and also hold her breath for a long time, so she gave her suit to him. The team above got word of their escape and dropped the diving bell to collect them, slowing the ship down. They were still being chased by Norton, which opened up a different can of worms. Luckily for them, Zihang was on his way in a helicopter to provide that much needed support. Things had gone from bad to worse when the ship was forced to float on the water. The pilot warned that one more hit would see it sink faster than Naruto using Rasengan. Caesar had the brilliant plan of hitting Norton with a boost-assisted torpedo he anticipated would destroy the Dragon Emperor. Yeah, but there was one problem. Norton could move equally as fast, and in any direction. So a creative way of hitting him directly up close would have to be strategized. Rin suggested 100 meters would be enough, and was tasked with launching it on command. She advised Caesar not to have his power activated when the torpedo was fired, because the loud sound would destroy his eardrums. The temporal captain took it on board, and went outside with a blindfold on to provoke the dragon, who had stopped chasing them after it sensed they were up to something. Caesar activated his power, which surrounded a good portion of the area, including Norton. He fired many bullets the dragon blocked easily. All the while, Rin had made it to the launch room ready to fire. Caesar ordered the pilot to move full speed ahead towards the dragon, who was ready to flee. But that's when the genius of Caesar became clear. He was distracting Norton all this time so that Zihang would get close enough to fire his ruler's flames. Seeing it as an insult, Norton fired his very own and caused a huge explosion along with an extremely bright light when it collided, blinding everyone on the surface. That is everyone apart from Caesar, who was protected by the blind fold. There was no way Norton could escape, as Rin was commanded to fire the missile, which hit its target and sent the Emperor flying across the sea far, far away from them before it sank to the bottom like a bag of rocks. Zihong took off after his job was done. Rin came out to see how Caesar was doing, and the man had damaged his ears after not listening to her advice. They communicated briefly through sign language, and Caesar gave her a high five for a job well done. Now all that was left was for Nono and Mingfei to find the diving bell and be pulled out. After the bomb they planted went off, the duo swam for a while in the dark until they spotted the red light of the diving bell. The smile on Mingfei's face said it all. They were finally safe. Nono opened it and then pushed the S-rank in first. Just as she attempted to enter, she was pierced from behind. Her natural ketchup splattered all over Mingfei. Norton wasn't dead. That mofo was alive. She quickly closed the door so that Mingfei could escape. But all the useless boy could do was ugly cry and bang on the glass, screaming like that British policeman as he watched her die in front of his eyes. I think we all sensed the protagonist power-up coming. Mingfei was transported to his inner world, where Lu Mingzi informed him that Nono was slowly slipping away, regardless of how loud he shouted. The pencil neck just wanted time to recover, after he learned that time passed slowly in this inner world. He wanted to be left alone to think of a way to save Nono, but when Lu Mingzi mentioned something about him being able to help eliminate a dragon, Mingfei suddenly became interested. Lu Mingzi asked about his dream, to which the S-rank responded that he wanted to make his parents proud, but he himself didn't know why a weak, pathetic pencil neck like himself was made an S-rank. He knew without luck or the help of Lu Mingzi, he'd be finished, and he was right. He also expressed how no one cared about him, so he felt like he didn't matter at all. But that all changed when Nono pulled him out of that darkness, yet all he could do to say thanks was to watch her die without having the power to do anything. Lu Mingzi listened to his outpour and decided to help when Mingfei expressed that he didn't want to take revenge on the world. His only condition was that he wanted Mingfei's life in exchange for summoning him 4 times to do whatever Mingfei wanted, basically a deal with the devil. Although that was a crazy offer, the S-rank felt like he had no other choice but to accept the contract. Lu Mingzi was taken aback and uttered that he had been trying for thousands of years for Mingfei to take this deal, but he always refused. Even so, the strange boy was glad that Mingfei fell for his trap. As promised, Lu Mingzi unlocked many skills for him to use in exchange for a quarter of his life. He came out of the dream world back to reality and wasted no time to save Nono. Mingfei had an ability unique to him to control life. That is what he used to revive Nono. He returned her mask and suit to her before tying her to the rope of the diving bell for her to be pulled up. Those above didn't really know what was going on below, but an epic battle was about to take place. It turns out the box recovered from Sheng's body had 7 powerful weapons inside of them created by Norton. Mingfei first began by sealing Norton's Yanling before summoning 3 of the 7 blades. He showed no mercy as he sliced and diced the dragon like those carnivore YouTubers carving steak. The dragon also put up a good fight when he made Mingfei bleed. Their showdown was evident at the surface when pillars of water jetted upwards. Caesar had retrieved Nono and boarded the ship, while Mingfei was going toe-to-toe with Norton. Lu Mingzi advised he end it soon. The further it went on, the more Mingfei would be at a disadvantage. Norton was aware of this fact, so he retreated to buy time. Dragons, after all, never got tired. But it was only a matter of time until Norton's Yanling returned. Lu Mingzi told the S-rank to aim for Norton himself. Playtime was over, and it was now or never. Mingfei used Caesar's ability to pinpoint the dragon and went for the kill, but something stopped him from landing the finishing blow. Mingfei was only now finding out that Tang was actually Norton. He tried the talk no jutsu, but Norton answered by grabbing his neck to squeeze the life out of him. Lu Mingzi had to come to the rescue again when he guided Mingfei's hands to pierce the dragon with the 3rd weapon, which petrified Norton. The Devil Boy didn't see the point in eliminating the Emperor of Bronze and Fire, since his power was not fully awakened thanks to Constantine's death. Mingfei cried as he floated to the top, and memories of Lao Tang flooded his useless brain. While everyone was clapping now that Nono was awake, Rin noticed Mingfei in the water. She swam over to help him. Not too far in the distance, Mai was witness to what happened. She was surprised Norton was still alive after all of that. The lady loaded a special bullet her boss prepared and no-scoped the Dragon Emperor. She easily took him out like she was breathing oxygen. Mingfei and the rest saw the explosion. Upon returning to the college, he had a meeting with the principal who congratulated him on his achievements so far. The S-rank even got perfect scores in all his classes. The principal took the chance to inform Mingfei that Nidhogg made the 4 emperors a set of twins. That way, if one becomes corrupted, he'd have a spare. The S-rank was still a bit down about Tang. Principal Anju revealed that he knew all along that they were friends. Tang even worked hard and was giving all the money he made to the orphanage that took him in. At this point, his memories were still lost, so he believed he was a human. He told Mingfei the harsh truth that once Lao Tang's memories came back, he would have dropped Mingfei as a friend, so apparently, Tang's death was the best thing to happen. The principal gave him a letter from his mother to make him feel better. He wept from the sweet words she wrote. There was one last thing before he was excused. Mingfei was to keep the details of what actually happened a secret. According to the official report, Caesar's torpedo is what eliminated Norton. Matter of fact, no one apart from Mingfei knew what truly transpired. They didn't even know Nono had died and was revived by Mingfei. Lu Mingzi told him to keep it that way. Pencil Neck later barged into his room to scold Finger about the article he posted, requesting that the senior take it down. A knock at the door paused their beef. It was Caesar asking for sugar. He and Zihang were cooking together in the room opposite. Nono and another girl had moved to that room, so they were having a party. Nono invited them over and thanked Mingfei for calling out her name when she passed out. She believed that is what saved her. The S rank said it was no big deal and declined her offer like a responsible student because he had a report to write. The girl respected that and left him to it. But before he entered his room, he received a parcel with a phone inside. A message from Lu Mingze thanked him for using his service and informed him that a quarter of his life had been taken. The phone was a way for Mingfei to contact the strange boy. Meanwhile, at the principal's office, he was going through Mingfei's test answers and saw a drawing of him next to Lu Mingze. Principal Anju remarked that it had been a long time and then burned the paper. We finally got to see why the principal was so interested in Mingfei. About 20 years ago, Principal Anju was leading a team to deal with an S-rank mission to apprehend 2 test subjects who had escaped from a research facility known as Black Swan Bay. One of them happened to be Rin, while the other was a powerful person known as Zero. Zero had already dealt with a few of the fighter jets that wanted to take them down. No one knew where they were going, but Zero was the one leading Rin. There were 2 particular associates of the college who were on their way to deal with the situation. Lu Lincheng and his pregnant wife Giovanna were both S-rank. They speculated that Zero might be a dragon emperor. All the while, Zero's goal was to get to China to gain the power he needed. He mentioned to Rin that Norton and Constantine had awakened. For now, his best option was to follow the train tracks he believed would lead him to his destination. Zero powered a dead train using his Yanling to escape their pursuers. At this moment, he was in the territory of a secret organization simply known as Caduceus, for their Caduceus symbol. They wanted to capture him before he crossed over to Castle College's territory, where they would have to stop their chase. That was the least of their problems because Zero summoned huge tornadoes with lightning strikes that took a few of them out. He dealt with the rest by releasing a tremendous fire attack which eliminated them. Being in a weakened state, Zero's flesh dissolved, showing his bones, but he was able to rematerialize. It was now Castle College's turn. The students who were waiting to ambush the train jumped in, knowing that this could be their last moment. Zoro counted over 120 of them who were all hybrid humans with dragon blood. He ordered Rin to cover her eyes. That is when the bloodbath began. With one simple swing of his hand, he eliminated about 12 of them. He gave the students a non-refundable course in how to use Yanling, which led to their deaths. Zero was basically slicing up the students like he was making a salad bowl. Lu Lincheng and Giovanna eventually arrived to delay Zero on Principal Anju's orders. They had to stop Zero, who was 2 minutes away from entering China. Zero laughed when he saw only the 2 of them, but Lu Lincheng was confident that he alone was enough to throw sand in Zero's plan. He wasn't bluffing when he showcased his Yanling, which was said to be from the heavens. It had the power to destroy all life form it touched. Zero was very impressed as the attack was flying towards him. He wasn't phased since Yanling didn't affect him. Giovanna reflected the attack, which was now aiming towards Rin, but that's when something crazy happened. Zero had given her an ability which allowed her to copy Giovanna's power. Rin reflected the attack back at them. Lu Lincheng jumped in the way to save his wife and unborn child from his own attack. The principal wasn't about to let that happen. He slowed down time and then dispelled the attack with his hands. Yeah, this old man was really built different. Of course, Zero wasn't affected by his power, but Anju was aware that Zero's body was failing him. Although that was true, the overpowered monster still had the ability to bring hell to the blizzard mountains they were at. Even if he did eliminate the principal, the high-level backup would have been able to delay Zero. Looking at the situation, Zero decided to strike a deal. He tore through time and space like he was ripping paper to retrieve a briefcase. Inside was something the principal wanted. The case was indestructible and could only be opened with a particular key Zero promised would appear to Anju very soon. His only condition was for him to take care of Rin. The old man didn't see any issues and made the deal with the dragon. With that settled, Zero said his final goodbyes to Renata and changed her name to Rin. He then turned into specks of energy dusts to rest inside the unborn baby in Giovanna's belly, which the principal saw. Not long after, backup arrived. One of the S-rank named Chu Tain Jiao was given the task of protecting the briefcase. His mission was to work as a driver in China and to start a family. Anju apologized to him before he left. It took this guy only 3 months to get married, and a year later, Zihang was born. Elsewhere at the college, Giovanna also gave birth to Mingfei. Zihang had a relatively happy childhood and wasn't always the serious guy. But while growing up, he heard his parents fight all the time. It seems like love wasn't enough to pay the bills. Zihang's father was broke. By the time the divorce papers were signed, his mother had already found and married a rich, handsome man. Zihang was now in middle school, and all the joy from his face vanished. His mother, although still loving, was more involved with shopping than him. He was Mingfei's senior, so these two go way back. There was a day after school where his father picked him up because of a typhoon. The traffic was terrible, so Tianjiao took a side road. It proved to be a good decision when they emerged out into a less busy street. But then something weird happened when the other cars vanished and the area looked strange. If I were to guess, I'd say they entered a different dimension. They hadn't noticed yet as they continued their journey. Zihang's father talked a lot, but he never really asked his son how he was doing. All he was concerned about was for Zihang to take advantage of his rich stepfather. But what the boy just wanted was a father who was present, a father who wouldn't always prioritize work. Tianjiao apologized after hearing his son's words. He really wanted to be by his son, and Zihang could sense that a little. But this family time wouldn't last long when monsters began to attack the car. Zihang had never seen anything like this before. His dragon blood awakened for the first time when he experienced spirit sight. His father assured him not to worry, and then welcomed him to the real world. Tianjiao's plan all along was to stay away from Zihang. That way the boy wouldn't get involved in this craziness. He wanted a normal life for his son. Now that that option was shattered into pieces, Tianjiao pulled out his blade and was slicing the monsters while he drove. Talk about multitasking. They were in a place known as Nibelungen, otherwise known as the Land of the Dead. Zihang saw his father turn autopilot on before jumping out of the car to distribute death to the monsters in a very aura-farming way. They were now in the clear as they approached the exit point. He told his son never to attend Castle College and promised to spend more time with him. But for now, he had to continue this journey on his own, since the creatures were after the briefcase. Just when things were looking okay, that is when Odin showed up. Let me tell you, Odin was one of the 4 dragon emperors. He was the dragon king of sky and wind. Tianjiao had nowhere else to run. His only option was for him and his son to get out of the car with the case in his hand. Odin was after it, but Tianjiao had no intentions of giving it to him. He threw it up into the air, giving Zihang time to run into the car like they discussed. The suitcase was a fake, but by this time, Zihang was on his way out of Nibelungen. He had sacrificed himself for his son. Tianjiao activated his Yanling Zero Time, which was the same as Principal Anju's, to prevent the monsters from chasing Zihang. Odin, of course, wasn't affected. The battle began, and although Tianjiao was the real deal, I don't think he stood a chance against the dragon. By this point, Zihang had escaped to the real world. He waited there in tears until the next morning, but his father never came back. From then on, nothing was ever the same for him, and any time it rained, he would remember that day. Now that the first semester was over, the students were on summer vacation. Mingfei returned to his home where everything had stayed the same, including his annoying auntie and cousin. Matter of fact, today was his birthday. The boy was turning 19. It was Norma who reminded him and wished him a happy birthday on behalf of the principal and the professors. Even Finger sent him a birthday message. He also got an invitation from Wenwen to join the literature club for food later that day. He agreed like the desperate clown he was. Auntie barged into his room shouting for him to go buy a new toilet seat and prep vegetables for a celebration of his cousin being accepted into college. Speaking of colleges, the professors at Castle College received briefing on an urgent SS rank mission that had to be completed within a time frame. Norma elaborated that a magnitude 2 earthquake had destroyed a train station near Mingfei's home. There was a man carrying very important documents who died in the disaster, but the top-secret papers were nowhere to be found. The college committee wanted the documents retrieved by 7 p.m. local time. Professor Waver suggested they send those who are already there since it would take too long to deploy investigators from the school. Mingfei and Zihang were chosen to carry out this job. Waver wasted no time in informing Zihang of the details. What was more interesting was that Mingfei was put in charge of the mission, which made Zihang his underling. While Zihang set off to collect Mingfei, the S-rank had arrived for the meal. As they waited for a table, he excused himself to use the toilet and banged the door into Zhao's face, which in a way was payback for how he embarrassed Mingfei on the night he confessed his love to Wenwen. Well, it looked like things didn't go so amazing for the girl. Zhao had broken up with her but began a relationship with one of her friends. Mingfei was in the bathroom when he witnessed Zhao and that girl coming in showing affection towards one another. I'm sure Mingfei was over Wenwen because he couldn't have cared less. He joined them at the table where Zhao was proposing to his new girl in front of his ex. Ouch. Mingfei still had a heart, so he called Zhao out for doing this on purpose just to hurt Wenwen. Their argument almost erupted into a fistfight, but they were held back. Zhao asked for the check but refused to pay for Mingfei. Not a problem. The S-rank student card had a spending limit of $100,000, but when they swiped it, it got declined. I know Mingfei was in Spain without the S. His embarrassment ended when Zihang came in offering to pay. He called Mingfei his boss and then introduced himself as their high school senior. Zhao's new girlfriend, soon-to-be wife, blushed because she had a heavy crush on Zihang, as did all the girls. Everyone was shocked that the coolest kid in their school's history was calling a loser like Mingfei his boss. Now that they were alone in the car, he informed the S-rank about their mission. But before they made their way to the station to scope the area, Zihang knew that Mingfei used to like Wenwen, so he went back to invite her to have dinner with him at the best restaurant in town. Zihang struggled to get reservations for them that night. He sent out an alert to all students at Castle College that if anyone could book a table, he would do anything they requested, provided it wouldn't land him in jail. Finger quickly informed Caesar about this amazing opportunity. All it took was one call from Caesar, and he was able to get the best table with the best chef for Mingfei. He then sent a happy birthday message to his fellow student union member. The S-rank remembered that he had to do the tasks his auntie set out for him. Zihang told him not to worry about that, and promised to send out professionals to carry out those tasks. They finally arrived at the station to investigate. Zihang found it interesting that a building that was engineered to withstand a magnitude 6 earthquake fell to a magnitude 2. It was clear that something wasn't adding up. His hunch was right because not too far from them at an office, there was a meeting between a clown and the man who retrieved the documents for money. The clown didn't even open it, but instead used an eye power to take a look inside. The content was information on plans to eliminate the 4 Dragon Kings. But the info the clown was most interested in was the fact that the college had dragon bones hidden beneath it. The strange client got up without taking the documents and warned the man to make sure that he hands it over to a person who will come to collect it at 7 p.m. Otherwise, there would be consequences. Back at the station, Zihang had found the spot where the guy was crushed and the documents stolen. He video called Nono for her to recreate what happened using her projection. She noticed that after his death, there were footprints near his blood which suggested that the person who collected the documents was not trained and ran to the nearest exit in a panic. They then got into a G-Wagon and fled the scene. This information was more than enough for Zihang to work from. She also added that there was another person involved who was there, but she couldn't tell who it was. The call ended, and Mingfei was told by his senior to meet at the office blocks later that evening for them to retrieve the file. Nono, on the other hand, was chilling in a pool when one of her friends pushed her into the water. She remembered being tortured by a powerful organization with a caduceus symbol linked to the college about how she survived Norton's attack. She refused to tell them, but she did remember slightly that Mingfei had something to do with it. Meanwhile, the college AI system had linked the stolen papers to an organization known for carrying out these types of work. Lao Tang used to work for them, and although they are on the borderline of criminal activity, they do not harm people. All the details were finalized, and Zihang was ready to execute. Elsewhere, Mingfei arrived home and was pleased to know that the help Zihang summoned actually got the tasks done. They addressed him as boss and asked him to inspect their work. His Karen energy auntie still wasn't happy as she scolded him for trying to show off. She just couldn't accept the fact that the loser she knew was shaping up to being more important than them. They didn't even acknowledge Mingfei's birthday. Shortly after, he was taken to have dinner with Wenwen. Caesar really pulled through because he had booked the entire restaurant. Food came and conversation was about to flow when Mingfei received an alert that the mission had begun. He was puzzled since the time Zihang told him to meet hadn't arrived yet. It dawned on him that maybe Zihang wanted to give the birthday boy a day off. The S-rank didn't waste time and quickly left the date to support his partner. At Zihang's location, he was already at the twin building and was informed that their target was at the top of the A tower, which was closed off. Zihang liked to work alone and had completed all his missions that way, but the committee had sent people to help him. He ordered them to keep security in the B tower occupied while he acted as a delivery boy, but would later cross the bridge to Tower A. Everything was going to plan when most of the security was called to deal with the 5 intruders. Zihang had only 7 minutes to retrieve the documents as he crossed the bridge and began taking out the guards in Tower A. Right now, the mission was looking like a breeze, so you know something crazy was about to happen. Just outside, the clown was sitting on a window ledge ready to flip this upside down. The unknown clown used a Yanling power that turned the defeated guards in Tower A into zombies. The professors recognized it right away and warned Zihang about it. The best he could do was gravely injure them, but they just kept getting up stronger than before. Their numbers were too much, which forced him to jump out onto the bridge. But did they follow? Nope. By the time he realized it was a trap, it was too late. A van being controlled by the clown crashed into the building, resulting in the bridge collapsing. Zihang was forced to use a secret technique called blood rage. It was dangerous, but increased his dragon blood, which greatly boosted his physical abilities, as well as his Yanling. He was able to shoot himself back to the window. He was having trouble with his enemies, so he increased his blood rage. Dragon scales grew on his body as a side effect, and he was losing control of himself. He started seeing the zombies as the creatures who took his father away from him. Zihang was no longer holding back when he used his sword to cut them up. He even resorted to using Ruler's Flame, destroying parts of the building. Apparently, he had a secret mission even he didn't know the full details of. The college surveillance was destroyed in the process, but his professor, who was Waver, had implanted a transmitter device in a tooth filling the student had at the college that couldn't be detected. Zihang made his way to where the documents were. The man was threatened by his appearance and started to shoot, but the bullets did nothing to him. He still wasn't himself, and grabbed the man to finish him off. But when he saw a phone call from Mingfei, he came back to his senses. The guy was just one step from losing absolute control. He collected what he came for and apologized to the man for the trouble, as if that was going to fix the building. The clown was watching from a distance, disappointed that the building wasn't destroyed. Their plan was for Zihang to go all out and bring the towers down. Not too long after, Mingfei arrived to see his senior all beaten up. Zihang thanked him for saving him, but Mingfei didn't have a clue what he was talking about. The mission was a success, and the duo were on their way to the airport after handing over the documents to a special team responsible for taking it to the college. Mingfei noticed Zihang's injuries were healing awfully fast. He disclosed it was thanks to the blood rage. He dropped Mingfei off and went to his home to pack. Zihang patched up his wounds and then said goodbye to his mother, who was sleeping. Meanwhile, at the school, a board meeting was taking place where the principal informed the members about the death of Norton. They were in disbelief since such a thing had never happened before. He assured them it was true, saying it was thanks to the Philosopher's Stone. They obviously didn't believe him. But he presented a crystal which was made using some of Constantine's bones. There was an alchemy expert among them named Charlotte, who analyzed the crystal and confirmed it to be true. One of the members, named Frost, wanted to know where Constantine's bones were being held. Principal Anjou assured him they were in a safe place known to only him and one other. But Frost wanted it to belong to the board, which the principal wasn't a fan of. He wasn't going to give it up no matter what, even if they fired him. It was clear that this was going nowhere, so they moved on to the next topic, which was the Nibelungen plan. Caesar was brought forward and introduced as the one who eliminated Norton. They gave him a round of applause. Caesar wasn't allowed to know who any of them were, apart from his uncle, who was Frost. The plan was to enhance his dragon bloodline in preparation for when the Black Dragon awakens. Caesar was selected due to his outstanding talent and purity of his dragon blood. The Nibelungen plan would allow him to use more than one Yanling. This technique was developed by the powerful leaders in the shadows known as the Council of Elders. It sounded cool and everything, but Caesar wondered why they didn't select Zihang or Mingfei. He was enlightened that he was the only one who had the skills of a leader and had also eliminated a dragon emperor. Caesar wasn't buying it and refused to take part, much to his uncle's disappointment. It was Uncle Frost, after all, who suggested Caesar. After the meeting, his uncle followed him outside to confront him on his disrespect. Although Caesar's father belonged to the prestigious Gattuso family, he didn't want any help from them when it came to things like this. His other half belonged to the Gulweig family, who were seen as bottom of the barrel by the Gattusos. Even so, Caesar was still accepted. Caesar, on the other hand, believed their abandonment of his mother led to her death. He saw himself as a Gulweig and left it at that with his uncle. His father knew about his engagement to Nono, but since she was not of noble descent, he would only accept the marriage if Caesar took part in the Nibelungen plan. Caesar got furious and told his family never to get involved in his personal life. All the while, as Mingfei and Zihang made their way to the airport, Mingfei saw his senior's wound and noticed that his blood was like acid. Zihang made an emergency stop to dress it up and then asked his junior not to tell anyone about it. Mid-conversation, Mingfei's phone began to buzz, and it was Wenwen. She was on her way home and wanted to know why he left like that. He simply apologized and she accepted before thanking him for the meal. She noticed he had changed, and before he could tell her how he used to feel, he was transported to his inner world by Lu Mingze, who wanted to wish Mingfei a happy birthday. But in reality, he wanted to give Mingfei a lecture on how power allows one to gain anything they want. He planted that seed in Mingfei's mind, and then kicked him out to reality. Mingfei confessed his feeling to Wenwen, and she admitted that she knew all along. It looked like Wenwen was trying to fall for him, but he was over her, and told her that those feelings were in the past. He now sees her as a sister. They wished each other the best, and said goodbye. Zihang wanted to know if he was now interested in Nono. He clearly was, but he said that he only liked those who liked him back. Finally, Mingfei was shedding his simp shell. Zihang informed him that the only reason he took Mingfei out of the mission was because he didn't have a goal in life, and not having one in their field of work would get you eliminated, regardless of how powerful your bloodline is. He believed true strength came from willpower. The junior was inspired by those words. After boarding the plane, Mingfei checked his phone, but saw that Nono hadn't yet wished him a happy birthday, and it was almost midnight. What he didn't know was that she was sending a voice message singing happy birthday to him, but he turned his phone off before it came through. They finally arrived in Chicago to take the CC line to college, but it was out of order since the workers were on strike for a week. Before they left to find a hotel, Zihang saved a girl who was falling off a ladder. She turned out to be a fellow student at Castle College. Her name was Xiami. She didn't have a place to stay and planned to sleep at a local park for the week like a homeless hobo. Zihang offered for her to stay with them, and she agreed as if she already knew them. Xiami refused to get her own room as not to be a burden. After getting their room, they discussed an ancient book Zihang was reading that mentioned something about humans evolving into dragons, but little was known about this. Mingfei was starting to see Zihang as a companion the same way he saw Tang. They decided to call it a night, and by the time morning came, Mingfei was the only one in the room when he woke up. He thought that the two of them liked each other and ditched him to go have fun. Whatever the case, Mingfei had slipped into yet another trance. The little devil Lu Mingzi told him he would need money for his upcoming mission. Mingfei, of course, didn't want another quarter of his lifespan to be taken away, but Lu Mingzi put his heart at ease, saying this was a gift from him with zero consequences. He reached to touch Mingfei's head, and the broke boy got a strange vision of Lu Mingzi always being by his side. It dawned on him that this little devil was closer to him than anyone else in the world. He snapped out of it and asked about this money favor Lu Mingzi was talking about. He informed Mingfei that all he has to do is say, "Show me the money," and his net worth would increase by $10,000. He was given permission to use it as many times as he liked, and then sent him back to the real world. A letter was waiting for Mingfei about a mission in Chicago. Elsewhere at the college, a strange sealed package meant for the board had found its way into the hands of Professor Waver, Guderian, and Klein. Waver was too curious to know what was inside, and opened it even though Klein protested. Inside were documents about the Nibelungen plan Zihang retrieved. Waver disclosed that Caesar was chosen. However, the board were planning on harming candidates who had more dragon blood than human blood. These included Zihang, Mingfei, and Nono. The board in the past dealt with these types of people by performing a surgery which destroyed their minds. The three professors obviously didn't want that to happen to their students, so they removed their files and burned it. They then prepared a new suitcase and sealed it in a way that the board wouldn't know it was tempered with. But if anything was to come up, the official story would be that the people who stole the documents took some of the papers. It wasn't long after they did this that a secretary from the board named Parsi came to collect the package. Back with Mingfei, he had gotten ready and went downstairs as instructed, where a car was waiting for him. The principal himself was the one who would brief him on this mission. While being driven by Norma the AI, he informed Mingfei that there was an ultra-secret auction he wanted them to attend. The S-rank student had been watching too many movies and got the wrong idea that they were going to rob the place. As he explained, he noticed that the car had entered inside a magical maze someone had created to trap them. What was more interesting was that the barrier would prevent hybrids with weak bloodlines from entering. Since Mingfei was present, I need not say much. The people responsible began their attack. Principal Anjou stepped out to handle business. It was 4 against 1, but by the looks of it, they should have brought an army. Anjou suddenly appeared in front of the first person and took out one of their eyes like he was harvesting strawberries. The others tried to stop him, but he was beating them up like they insulted his mother. He finally activated his Yanling and was about to finish 2 of them off, but the 4th person who was hiding was able to disrupt his 0 time. He managed to find the culprit and eliminated her with ease before chopping up the rest like sausages. The barrier was disabled, and he returned to the car without a scratch. Mingfei wanted to know who those guys were, but Anju simply informed him that they were hybrid enemies and left it at that, saying it was too early for the S rank to know the details. There was a fifth person nearby in a car who reported to his boss saying that they failed, but the man was told to get close to Mingfei at the auction. All the while, Mingfei's mission was to act as an inexperienced, rich, spoiled kid who would purchase a lot of useless items as a cover. So when it was time to buy the item Anju actually wanted, no one would bat an eye, which was a smart strategy. The college had allocated 2 million into his bank account for this mission for him to use to look the part. Anju gave him an incentive to make this mission a success by offering Mingfei a pass grade in 2 classes he was failing. The principal hinted that he didn't have much time, so Mingfei needs to learn all he can. Being a hybrid meant that he wouldn't die of any illness, but the old man was tired of this long life. He kicked Mingfei out of the car so that they wouldn't be seen together. The boy did as instructed and arrived in a limo to the auction, which caught everyone's attention. But as soon as he stepped out with 2 watches on his arm, they all laughed at him for having zero taste. Everything was going according to plan. He went inside and found his seat, but the man who was asked to keep an eye on Mingfei was next to him. He introduced himself to seem friendly. Mingfei was only now finding out that everyone there was a hybrid. The man, whose name was Tang Sen, told the S rank that present today were members from the 13 Nobles Alliance. The principal told him the rest through an earpiece that not all hybrids went to the college. Matter of fact, there were other powerful factions who saw the world differently to them. Anju couldn't explain the rest now that the auction was about to start. The S rank bought a few useless items like he was told, and finally, the item Anju was waiting for was brought out. Apparently no one knew where it came from or how to value it, so the bid began at $1. But when the covers were unveiled, Mingfei couldn't believe his eyes. What he was supposed to be bidding for was the 7 deadly sins weapons forged by Norton. You know, the same weapons he lost during the battle. The people in the crowd put no value on it, with one even saying it looked like a knife set that was crafted in someone's backyard. Looks like it was going to be an easy grab for Mingfei. But that was when a random lady in the back bid $200,000, which had everyone gasping. Of course, things were not going to be that easy. Mingfei had to challenge her, but she raised it all the way to $1.5 million. Tang Sen's boss was interested to know who she was because it was clear that she knew the true value of the weapons, so he ordered the man to bring her to him. Mingfei had already crossed his budget when the bid reached 2 million, but the lady took it too far when she offered $10 million. The S rank was so afraid to bid because the money was too much, but he remembered it was him who retrieved it in the first place, so he bid 20 million. Looking at how things were escalating, those in charge of the auction summoned Mingfei to their office, suspecting his bid was fraudulent since he only had 2 million in his account. While in there, he got news that the lady had raised it all the way to 50 million. Mingfei wasn't allowed to bid unless he could prove he had the money. He remembered the cheat ability Lu Mingzi gave him, so he used it to transfer 100 million into his account, and with that absurd amount of money, he won the bid. He went to the toilet to freak out about what he just did, and as he came out, the lady who was bidding against him congratulated him with a kiss to his cheek before fleeing the scene. Tang Sen's men tried to apprehend her, but they failed miserably when she took them all out like she was dancing. They couldn't catch her, especially when she used her teleportation Yanling to get away in a car. The lady was none other than Mai, and somehow, she was glad that the weapons were in Mingfei's possession, which made no sense because the lady was literally trying to outbid him. Whatever. Back inside, Anju was invited to a meeting by a very old acquaintance who also seemed overpowered. When he arrived, he was met with the representatives of each faction. The old acquaintance wanted him to confirm if it was true that the college eliminated Norton and Constantine. Not only did Anju confirm it was true, but he also disclosed that they were in possession of Constantine's bones. They applauded him for achieving something that had never been done before, and that was to permanently slay a dragon emperor. One of the representatives wanted Anju to share the bones for a handsome price. It turns out that devouring the bones of a dragon emperor was a way of gaining more power. This was also true for dragons. The man wanted to bring in a new era where the dragons would be no more, and the hybrids would rule the world and become the new dragons. When Anju heard his goal, he attacked the man and gave him a slash to his face. Anju hated dragons. He walked out of the meeting warning all of them that they shouldn't dare make an enemy out of him, otherwise they would regret it. Anju's old acquaintance, whose name was Henkel, called out a mysterious person who hid his identity with a bag over his head to come out. Henkel got confirmation from this strange person that what Anju said was true. He wanted the unknown to keep an eye on Mingfei. The boy was of great interest to him, especially after he received 100 million in 10 seconds, which was impossible for a single bank to issue. Henkel pointed out that Mingfei received $4 from 25 million banks worldwide to get the money. Anyone who had such power was not normal. He saw what happened to be an act of a god. Henkel ordered the man to infiltrate the college and retrieve Constantine's bones. At this point, Anju and Mingfei were out of there with their prize. He warned the S-rank that once the dragons fall, those people in the auction would be their enemies. And now, thanks to Mingfei's stunt, everyone knows who he is, which the principal was proud of. He asked Mingfei what his reason for living was, but when the boy gave an unsatisfactory answer, he accelerated the car, threatening to crash it, saying that only when faced with death would the true meaning of living come to him. He was afraid for his life, thinking the old man was crazy, and then it came to him. He saw a vision of a younger him looking all sad with Lu Mingze embracing him, saying they should live on so that they can take revenge on the whole world. Anju slowed down once he saw that Mingfei had found his reason. The principal didn't know what it was, but he shared his own reason for living, which was to destroy the dragons for taking his friends and family away from him. They carried on their journey to where Zihang and Xiami were. It seemed as though Mingfei was right, because the two were having fun at a theme park. Zihang had taken her there for her orientation. They got talking, and the girl disclosed that she has a disabled twin brother who always needed attention from her parents. So she wasn't able to enjoy things like theme parks. But despite all of that, she still loved him. Story time was over when the principal and Mingfei arrived. The gang of four went on a roller coaster. All seemed fun and well, but that's when disaster hit yet again. Lu Mingzi appeared to warn him that in a few seconds, everyone on the ride will die. The little devil was offering a deal to save them all, but of course, for a quarter of Mingfei's life. But luck was on Mingfei's side this time around. Anju saw the danger and activated his Yanling. He gave his students the ability to move freely and informed them that they had a short time to come up with a plan before he passed out. Zihang, being the geek he is, read on a poster that the ride had a special magnetic braking system that allows it to decelerate. The timing had to be right so that it would take them back into the tunnel. Up ahead, the track had split into two, and a huge ball of metal was falling towards them. Zihang took the front to deal with the metal, while Mingfei took the back to activate the brakes. Anju was about to pass out, so it was up to the two to save them. There was one problem. If Mingfei connected the wires, Zihang would be electrocuted. The senior told him not to think about it. This plan was the only way they all survived. Sure enough, when the brakes were applied, Zihang was hit with that electricity, but he was able to hold on long enough to release his ruler's flame, which destroyed the metal ball. While everyone was safe, Zihang was free, falling to his death. Mingfei wished he accepted the deal. He saw losing a part of his life was worth saving Zihang. It wasn't over yet. Xiami came to the rescue when she used her wind Yanling to save him. After that fiasco, Anju had a meeting with all the head of departments at the college to discuss exactly what caused the accident. They came to the conclusion that both the train station and roller coaster incident were caused by the same entity, the Dragon Emperor of Earth and Mountain. The meeting had come to an end. Mingfei, who was only one room away, heard everything which the principal intended. He took the S rank to a secret part of the college probably only known to a few. It was way below, hidden underwater. Apparently, there were only 5 of such structures around the world, and it housed the entire history of human civilization, along with the knowledge of Yanling and alchemy. They arrived at the dome and stood before a pyramid said to have been originally left by the civilizations of dragons. There were writings in it predicting how the world would end, something even the dragons feared. On top of the pyramid laid Constantine's bones. Anju planned to move to a different location. The principal's hope in Mingfei was very strong. He hoped that the boy would one day save the world and carry on his legacy at Castle College. Meanwhile, Zihang had woken up in a hospital with Xiami by his side. She informed him that he had been sleeping for 10 days. She warned him like an angry mother not to risk his life like that, otherwise he would end up dead. Zihang felt like he was obligated to act that way, especially after feeling like he failed to save his father. The girl eventually fell asleep, and he learned from a nurse that she had been by his bed for 48 hours without shutting her eyes. Anju later came to visit him to talk about the blood rage technique he used at the park. The principal was once the head of the Lionheart Society, and he knew that the genius kid deciphered the code from one of their hidden records to learn the forbidden technique. Although it increased power, it caused the user to lose control of themselves, eventually attacking everyone like some rabid dog. The principal gave his student a brief history lesson, which was crazy to say the least. When the dragons fell to the humans, they experimented on the ones that survived, and had the women bear their children, which produced hybrids. Their intention was to use them as offerings for their gods, but they ended up creating an abomination. Anju explained that hybrids had to use their human blood to suppress the raging dragon blood that flowed in their veins. Otherwise, they would become the very monsters they despised. Once the dragon blood overwhelmed the human blood, that person would evolve into an incomplete dragon known as a death servitor. These were the creatures that attacked Zihang and his father some years back. So the ultimate reason blood rage was forbidden was to prevent this limit from being reached. The principal told him with a cold expression that if that were to happen, he wouldn't hesitate to eliminate Zihang. He overlooked it for now because of the courage he showed, but warned him never to use it again. The principal offered him another save when he ordered a blood transfusion. He anticipated that the committee would ask for blood samples to see if he had gone past the critical bloodline limit. Elsewhere in Rome, Frost had learned from Parsi that the dragon emperor of Earth and Mountain who controls force had awoken. They figured out that the dragon for some reason wanted Zihang dead, so Parsi was ordered to pay him a visit. He arrived a little while after Anju left and got a blood sample from the lad saying it was for research. He expressed his wish to talk in private with the student before leaving. Anju, on the other hand, went to visit the night watchman to disclose important information he got from Zihang. The principal had the boy hypnotized to find out what happened the night his father disappeared. Zihang was forced to remember the exit they took before being teleported. But when Anju checked the map, such an exit didn't exist. Considering the details of the event, they landed on the possibility that Zihang had entered Odin's Nibelungen. No one had ever entered such a place, and even master alchemists failed to locate it. Through their research, it suggested that Nibelungen was the land of dragons hidden in a different dimension, and each dragon emperor had the ability to create their own dimension. The principal planned on using Zihang to find the entrance again, though it is said one can only enter if the dragon invites them in. Moving past that, the committee investigative team were said to be arriving the next day. They were looking for any reason to fire Anju and were hoping that they would find that reason in Zihang's blood. They eventually came to know about the documents that were destroyed and were even more suspicious that something foul was taking place. They had no knowledge about Zihang's trip to Nibelungen, since those records were also destroyed. Anju was afraid that if they took him into custody, they would eventually find out by hypnotizing him, so he asked the night watchman to do him a favor. Mingfei went to see his senior the next day, and somehow their conversation turned into one about falling in love. It sounded like Zihang had fallen for Xiami. Mingfei shipped them when she brought food for the patient. When Mingfei left them alone, Zihang asked her about how to confess to a girl. She told him to be upfront and say it before he loses them, because he may never get that chance again. Meanwhile, the investigative team had arrived. The leader was pleased to know that Parsi had the blood sample. The night watchman welcomed them and took them on a tour of the school, which ended with a party at his place. He got them all completely drunk. Maybe that was intentional. Elsewhere at the college, that unlocked character who helped Mingfei with his exams in Season 1 made a return to ask the AI to revoke Caesar's marriage proposal to Nono. He was disappointed to learn that she couldn't do that. He wanted to give Mingfei a chance with Nono. And surprise, surprise, the shadow person was none other than Finger Sensei. The AI he was in love with was once a real person he lost. Their nice moment came to an end when a dragon intruder was detected. It was the clown from before who was looking for Constantine's bones. But the most shocking reveal was that Finger was the mysterious baghead person from the auction who was asked to keep an eye on Mingfei. Finger took off to deal with the dragon and called the principal to inform him about the situation. Within seconds, Mingfei was summoned to the office. Anju had a task for him, but Mingfei smelled trouble and refused. He changed his mind after being bribed with 10 extra credits. His task was to take the 7 weapons to the ice vault below and reinforce the barrier. He arrived and spotted the tree Anju described, but what he didn't know was that the clown was also there. The intruder had set eyes on the bones and performed a ritual to awaken Constantine so they could eat him. When nothing happened, the dragon clown truly knew that Constantine was actually dead. No reincarnation, no revival, just dead. The next best thing was for them to take the bones, but the barrier prevented them. The dragon went all out using the 4 elements to break it. But things weren't going to be that simple. Finger made his presence known by launching a box at the dragon, which shattered on impact. Parsi also arrived, and Finger recognized him as a member of the Gattuso family. He too was there to make sure that the bones were safe. They both teamed up against the dragon. Believe it or not, Finger was pretty strong. The guy was even able to use his Yanling even with the law activated. The same was true for Parsi. Finger went up first after enhancing his body, but he was no match for the clown. Simply put, he got his ass whooped so badly even I wanted to tag him out. Luckily, Parsi was there to help him out, but the special bullets he shot was countered when the clown turned their very own blood into iron. They then transformed it into various weapons, which completely amazed the duo. While their fight was going on, Mingfei was still on his mission to strengthen the barrier. He heard a ruckus but didn't have a clue that his senior was fighting for his life with that stupid bag on his head. That was until Finger was sent crashing in front of Mingfei. The senior's voice was disguised, so the S-rank didn't totally know who he was, but he seemed to recognize it a bit. He asked the baghead to give him time to erect the barrier. The guy promised 3 minutes, which was a far cry from Mingfei's requested 7. Finger first asked the clown for a 4-minute break for them all to regain their strength, but the intruder offered only 1 minute. Time was up, and even when the duo went all out, the power gap was unbelievable. Parsi found out the hard way looking at his injuries. The clown heard someone screaming and now knew that there was a third person. The scream was from Mingfei, who had jumped to get to the bones. Dragon Clown had had enough now, so they decided to just flood the area with the water above them by cutting the pipes that connected to the aquarium. Their plan was to wait until everyone drowned and then harvest the prize. But fortunately, Mingfei had made it to the tree and was sad to see Constantine's bones. He began the activation of the barrier by attaching one of the severed branches to the tree trunk. He had to push it really hard to make sure it powered up. Clown had sensed this and rushed quickly before it was too late. Finger and Parsi got pinned trying to intercept, but just as the clown got to the bones, the barrier activated. Finger quickly shouted for him to strengthen it by using the weapons of the 7 deadly sins. The dragon was getting ready to destroy it once again, until Mingfei activated it, which made the barrier grow larger and repelled the clown back. The dragon was defeated, but they didn't leave without a parting gift. They destroyed the dome, which saw large amounts of water pouring in. Finger and Parsi escaped via the elevator with a special access card Parsi possessed, leaving Mingfei, who was protected by the barrier. The flooding caused a fault in the electrics, resulting in huge explosions erupting all the way to the surface of the college. As that was going on, Mingfei was worried that he would die, and no one would remember him. The boy hated being alone. Worse still was that the barrier was getting smaller. But Anju wouldn't let his precious S-rank die, so he came to save Mingfei. The principal later received word from the night watchman that Zihang had been taken by the committee, and a hearing was going to be held. Even though the school looked like a war zone, the hearing was still taking place. Mingfei made his way there after Finger informed him about it. The hearing was to establish if the school were hiding important information about Zihang. Mingfei was called as a witness and pressured about the mission he went on with the guy. The investigation team knew Mingfei didn't take part, and the task was far above his level, but the S-rank actually stood his ground with no fear and said he came up with the plan and ordered Zihang to carry out the mission. Nono backed up his claims, saying the boy was a genius S-rank whose orders they all follow. The investigative team were left with no bullets, so they brought out the nuke. Parsi came forward with the blood sample he took from Zihang as evidence. The defense knew they were cooked. Parsi proved his point by mixing Zihang's blood sample with a normal human's blood. It resulted in an explosion, which proved that Zihang's blood had crossed the limit. The college higher-ups knew what this meant, and feared that he could turn into a death servitor any moment. The investigative leader accused Principal Anju of hiding this fact. There was no way out. The evidence was clear. But that is when Xiaomi pointed out that they could have tempered with Zihang's blood. She requested that they take a sample from him right now. The investigative leader was aware that he had a blood transfusion, so such a request was invalid since it would take a month for Zihang's real blood to return. She made a very critical point. She stated that Zihang would have exploded during the transfusion if his blood was really what they were claiming. The investigative team didn't have an answer. They resorted to their final evidence, which was for Caesar to give a testimony. They were hoping that since this was the perfect chance to get rid of his rival, he would incriminate Zihang. But the opposite happened. He praised and glazed Zihang, which left the investigative team stunned. The outcome was obvious. Zihang was innocent. But the celebrations wouldn't last long, as there was an announcement that the Dragon Emperor named Fenrir was about to awaken. Someone posted a $100 million bounty on his head online. Giving this news, Mingfei, Finger, and Zihang were tasked with going on this mission to China as one team, while Caesar, Nono, and Xiaomi were the other. Anju offered Mingfei's team an advantage by allowing them to take a weapon from the 7 deadly sins. He reminded them that Norton, who was a master alchemist, had created them to use against his 7 dragon siblings. Each weapon targeted a specific weakness and could eliminate a dragon once awakened. The boys were ordered to take one, but they were difficult to pull out. Mingfei only managed to pull the first one out, but Finger got 3. When Zihang came to the third one, it rejected him by piercing his hands. Zihang stayed behind to talk with the principal. We learned that after the blood transfusion, he became weaker. Even so, Zihang's true power was only possible thanks to the blood rage, and in his case, he had gone too far with it and would possibly die soon as a result. His permanent golden eyes were proof of this. He hid them by wearing contact lenses. Anju informed him that there was more to the blood rage Zihang didn't know. He told the student about the Nibelungen plan, which effectively does the same thing, but without the side effects. It was almost impossible to develop, so there was only one slot available. Zihang's only chance of surviving was to be selected for it, but that would be difficult since the Gattuso family were leading the project and only planned to give it to Caesar. Zihang would have to also eliminate a dragon emperor to prove himself the strongest. Before he left, Zihang wanted to know why Finger was being forced to go, so the principal informed him that a failed mission in the past affected him negatively and left him injured. Anju was hoping this mission would allow Finger to find himself again. The principal gave Zihang his blade that was able to eliminate a dragon emperor and then wished him good luck. Meanwhile, Caesar was also given a special crossbow weapon by the school board to aid him slay the dragon. We later found out why Caesar supported Zihang at the hearing. He made a deal with the vice president of the Lionheart Society, who promised to give him all the details they had on blood rage. Zihang probably wouldn't be happy when he finds out, but she had to do what she had to do. The students arrived in China, and Mingfei bumped into Tang Sen from the auction. He wasn't there to take part. He only hoped to witness a historical event of the slaying of a dragon emperor. Mai was also there. Mingfei didn't see her, but he felt her presence. She got into a car and her work colleague informed her that their boss had given them the task to make sure Mingfei slays the dragon emperor. Mai was sick and tired of helping out the loser and didn't understand why their boss was obsessed with the kid. She had a feeling that if a lonely boy like him were to fall into despair, he'd become a demon. All the while, Zihang was in their hotel room with Finger trying to find the location of the dragon using data of earthquakes and other information. Xiami came into their room with food for them and then invited Zihang to her family home for a meal the next day. She was also acting as a spy for the boys and told them that Caesar was at the antiques district. Caesar had gone to see a man who was selling information about the dragon for $200,000. The information he was given seemed legit, so he collected the documents and went on his way. Not long after, Parsi came out of the shadows when Caesar left. Parsi paid $5 million for the book Caesar took, but he asked the man to sell it to Caesar. Since Caesar didn't want any help from his family, this was the only way they could aid him. Looking closely at Parsi, one of his eyes was a permanent golden color, so he too was in the same boat as Zihang. But the most interesting thing was that the shopkeeper was in hiding, and an old friend of Anju. His real name was Friedrich von Ron, and I bet he too was an overpowered old man as he threatened Parsi to keep that information to himself. Meanwhile, Zihang's blood had returned to normal, and so had his strength. He found an interesting blog about a legend which stated that the train station had a hidden line. Coincidentally, 2 of the dragon hunters had recently gone missing near the station. Finger believed it was possible that the dragon was hiding there. Zihang, on the other hand, was a bit skeptical, but he saw no harm in focusing his data analysis of seismic shifts around that area. As these guys were putting in shift, Mingfei was busy at the internet cafe playing games. The boy was being hit on by a girl, which was most unusual, especially for a risless, spineless, weak, scrawny, pathetic cry.
Whoa, I think that's enough, American boy.
Sorry, I got carried away. The boy was being hit on by a girl, which was most unusual, especially for someone like him. Mingfei wasn't interested and told her to scram. It would come to light that the girl was sent by Mai and her co-worker. They wanted her to lure him to the dragon lair so that he could kill it. Their boss wanted the mission completed in 18 hours' time. Since Mingfei wasn't budging, the girl took his phone and ran away. He chased her through the rain but then stopped when he saw how much of a loser he looked like when he caught a reflection of himself. Those were his words, not mine. Lu Mingze came out to warn him of an upcoming event that would most likely kill him if his heart wasn't ready. The devil unlocked yet another cheat skill that would level Mingfei up to the point he could crush every dragon emperor with a single blow. Mingfei was already feeling down due to his imposter syndrome, so he told Lu Mingzi to get lost. He heard the girl being attacked by a bunch of thugs and stepped in like a hero, but he got his ass beat. The girl escaped, and the low lives took out their frustrations of not having their way with her on him. They jumped him, throwing all sorts of kicks and punches. What was worse was that Lu Mingze was watching and roasting him for being pathetic and foolish. Mingfei was in a state known as blood sorrow, a crippling feeling of loneliness and sadness experienced by dragons and hybrids. It seemed like Lu Mingzi was in a worse state as he expressed that he was the only one who needed and cared for Mingfei, so he didn't understand why Mingfei didn't love him back. I don't know, maybe because you're trying to take his life? I'm not a therapist. The devil decided to help him by giving him a sample of the cheat power. He unlocked only 1% for now and fused with Mingfei. The S rank got 2 visions. One was of him hugging Lu Mingze. The second was Mingze gravely injured and pinned to a cross. Mingfei got up and the criminals could tell he was different. He beat them up very easily and retrieved his phone. He was acting a little bit unhinged, but when he came back to his senses, He was afraid of what he did and ran away, calling Lu Mingzi crazy. Pencil Neck didn't get far when he got a fake notification from Mai saying that Zihang had gone missing at the train station. Mingfei wanted to be by his side this time around and went to find him, but it was a trap to get him to enter Nibelungen, and it worked. Mai then sent the location to Zihang. Their plan was for Zihang to die while fighting the dragon, which would leave it weak for Mingfei to eliminate. Zihang got ready and made his way there alone since Finger was nowhere to be found. He was hoping to find his father there. We cut to Mingfei, who had gone underground to the platform hoping to find his senior. A creepy-looking train arrived. He refused to enter, but instead followed the track on foot. Big mistake. The boy was being chased by flying devil birds that almost caught him when he tripped, but he noticed that they were after his flashlight, so he turned it off. Mingfei was glad to see them leave him alone as they flew past him. Turns out they were never going to attack him anyway because Mai had covered his clothes in a smell the creatures hated, as instructed by her boss. Basically, the monsters thought he stunk. He continued until he encountered a different-looking demon, which was a female. Unlike the males that attacked him earlier, she was huge and could sense Mingfei. It grabbed him, but that is when the train came and rescued him. He figured the only way to come out of this tunnel safely was to enter the train. As soon as he stepped in, it began to move. He was welcomed by the two students from the college who had gone missing. At first, he was afraid that they were ghosts, but they assured him that they were humans. Matter of fact, they had been stuck for several days without food or water but couldn't die. Their only way of escaping was to win a card game which involved having amazing math skills. Mingfei was failing math class, so you know he had no chance. The man, on the other hand, had the second highest math scores in the college, with Finger holding the #1 spot. At this point, I'm not even surprised. Back on the surface, Mai was hoping that Zihang got on the train. They had no surveillance of what was going on, but the only reason they chose Zihang to pave the way for Mingfei was because the girl in the mask he fought had informed her that if Zihang had gone all out, she would have lost. Their hopes were answered when Zihang got on a train, but he destroyed it after encountering what he believed to be death servitors. Now with no train, he was ambushed by the flying demons. He cut them down, but they just kept on coming. Somehow, Xiami had also found her way to him, and the two of them performed a combo attack like a power couple which eviscerated the creatures. He wanted to know what she was doing there, and she admitted that she installed a tracking app on his phone like a creep. She was worried when he didn't respond to her message, so she followed him. He explained to her where they were and said that in Nibelungen, time doesn't pass. As that was going on, Mingfei and his new friends arrived to play the game. Players had to bet their despair, which was represented by coins. Mingfei was given a crown which equated to 1,000 coins. In contrast, the other two on their first game were given just 1 coin. The game began after the rules were explained. Mingfei's hand was terrible and he had no chance of winning. But then, his devil companion showed up to promise him victory. Lu Mingze told him that without his help, Mingfei would be stuck there forever. But with his aid, the S rank would be invincible. And invincible he was, because this guy was winning every round, eventually winning the game. The two students went back on the train, while the dealer, who was the female monster, disappeared into fragments of energy and then floated down the tunnel. Simultaneously, Zihang was carrying Xiami as they followed the track. They reached the station Mingfei was just at and continued their journey through the tunnel. They got talking, and both revealed that they had no friends growing up, so their early years were pretty lonely. Zihang still had every intention of visiting her family after all this was over and done with, but he then felt a sudden heat sensation on his back. There was a mark that looked like the school's tree emblem. It appeared after he came out of Odin's Nibelungen all those years back. The tree's real location was said to be the resting place of the black dragon Nidhogg. Zihang was feeling weird, and knew he had this feeling before. It finally dawned on him that he was in Nibelungen. While he was only now figuring it out, Mingfei had already made it to the location of the dragon. He was afraid that it would eat him when it licked him, but the dragon declared him the winner and asked what game they should play next. Mingfei noticed that Dragon Emperor Fenrir had the demeanor of a child. He offered the S-rank potato chips and even threw on the television for them to watch. Fenrir couldn't move freely since he was attached to a wall, so Mingfei wondered how he got all of these items. It was clear that someone was bringing it down to him. He suddenly felt an intense heat coming from the tunnel, and it was Zihang who activated Blood Rage. He was too emotional about his father that he forgot about the principal's warning. He launched a fire attack using the car he was riding on towards the dragon. When it landed, Fenrir folded up into a ball, begging not to be hit. His level of intelligence was like that of a child. Zihang didn't care and did a combination attack with Xiami. She used her wind power to elevate the fireball to the dragon and then called Fenrir her brother, before unleashing the attack which had zero effects on him. Zihang was forced to equip 2 of the 7 deadly sins and landed a blow that killed Fenrir while Mingfei was looking on. It was over. But Xiami was falling to the floor out of exhaustion, so Zihang caught her like he did on their first encounter. He thanked her for the help, but that is when the unthinkable happened. She pierced his chest with her hand. As that was going on, Caesar and his team visited an abandoned shop close to the train station. The information he gathered led him there in hopes of finding and defeating the dragon. He split up with the girls, and while searching, he bumped into Tang Sen and other groups of hybrid tourists exploring the place. Tang Sen introduced himself as Mingfei's friend, and noticed the device Caesar was holding was spinning very fast. Caesar explained that it was because there was unusual activity going on below their feet. Little did he know that his rival was facing ultimate betrayal. Xiami leaped out of his arms and revealed herself to be Yermungandr, the dragon emperor of earth and mountains. Her intention was to transform into the goddess of death named Hela after consuming Fenrir, but she just couldn't bring herself to do it. Her brother pulled her out of years of despair, and she loved him very much. That is why she tried to steal Constantine's bones when she infiltrated the college as the clown. But since she failed, she now had no choice but to eat Fenrir to gain the power she desired. Yermungandr was the weakest of the dragon emperors, but because she had the intelligence, Fenrir entrusted himself to her. As she explained herself, Mingfei had the plan to create a barrier using the 7 weapons, so he went to retrieve the other 2 blades lodged in Fenrir. Yermungandr sensed this and attacked, but Zihang was able to push Mingfei out of the way, and got hit instead. He had no choice but to use blood rage for the 3rd time. At this point, he was no longer in control of himself as he clashed with the dragon. The battle had created a wall of rocks between them and Mingfei. Lu Mingzhe appeared to him warning that a funeral was coming. The S-rank ordered him to help, but the devil wanted a quarter of Mingfei's life. The boy refused for now telling him to get lost. Meanwhile, even with a power-up, Zihang still stood no chance against the dragon. She badly injured him, and he was at death's doors. The dragon explained that he wasn't supposed to be there. That was why she invited him to her apartment. She also revealed that they spent time together in middle school, but she erased his memories. She followed him because he had the mark of Odin's Nibelungen. She wanted to use him to enter it again, and then eliminate Odin to devour his bones to gain even more power. Zihang realized that she was the one behind the theme park incident and the train station collapse. His hope that she was in love with him was shattered. She only felt pity for him after observing his loneliness, since she too was lonely like him. Zihang asked her to be Xiami one last time before she eliminated him. She fulfilled his request and allowed him to hug her while he cried. She landed a blow to his back, which gave him the perfect opportunity to retaliate with a similar blow to hers, using the weapon principle Anjou gave him. How she didn't see this coming, I'll never know. Guess this is why she's the weakest. Yermungandr was done for when she removed the weapon from her back and saw that the blade was made from parts of a holy weapon. She gave the blade back, along with her apartment key she removed from her mouth, to Zihang, and just like that, her life came to an end. Mingfei climbed over the barrier and arrived soon after. Surprisingly, Zihang was fine. They collected the weapons and prepared to leave. But that is when Fenrir woke up. He wasn't dead. Zihang probably didn't use the weapons correctly. Fenrir swallowed his sister, healed himself, and then broke free from the wall. The senior was afraid of the implications, especially when Fenrir rose up to the air and performed a yanling that had the power to destroy the world. He grabbed Mingfei, and they both ran out of there. Meanwhile, directly above them, a few of the demon birds escaped through a crack to Caesar's location. Parsi was outside with old man Friedrich, who received a call from Frost. He handed the phone over to Parsi. Parsi was told to protect Caesar no matter what, so he went inside to carry out his mission. Caesar was doing just fine chopping up the creatures. He was in communication with Nono, who had trapped herself in the bathroom to fight a few of the creatures. Although she couldn't use Yanling, nor did she have any weapons with her, she made do with a pole and smashed them to pieces. She noticed one of them had a voice recorder device lodged into its eye and retrieved it. The message was from the 2 students who were stuck down there. Since the game was over, they were now being attacked by the creatures. They mentioned that Mingfei was also down there, and whomever heard this should call for help. Nono was in shock and no longer replying to Caesar. Before he could go and check on her, Parsi arrived and placed a barrier around them both, which eliminated the creatures on impact. Nono finally responded, saying that the monsters were returning to the dragon to sacrifice themselves as part of the attack Fenrir was preparing. He was gathering energy to destroy the world. When Caesar heard Mingfei was also down there, he wanted to go save him. Parsi advised him not to go. He disclosed that the creatures were attacking Caesar because he was carrying the special crossbow bolt. Caesar saw this as good news because he could act as bait to prevent the rest from returning. The barrier shattered after taking too many hits. Caesar dashed out, but he was soon surrounded. He activated his blood rage for the first time, which blew the monsters back. But the most epic thing was that his Yanling power had evolved, allowing him to create a weapon. As that was going on, Zihang had tricked Mingfei into entering a train before blasting him off to safety. Zihang's plan was to go back to face Fenrir on his own. The S-rank was annoyed that no one believed in him, but were always trying to protect him. He had enough and jumped off the train to go help his senior and prove that he was strong. Zihang was failing miserably. He couldn't even make a scratch on the Fenrir's barrier. He tried one last time with all his power but was knocked down to his death. Mingfei arrived on time to catch him, but Fenrir shot a metal beam that sent the S-rank flying into the wall. Both him and Zihang were close to entering the afterlife. He told his senior to rest up and then cried to Lu Mingze for help. The devil hugged him and unlocked 60% of the cheat power after they fused. With one swipe of his hand, Mingfei destroyed all the monsters and then broke Fenrir's barrier. The real fight began, and although the dragon was extremely strong, Mingfei and Lu Mingze were just on a different level. They used the 7 weapons to decimate the Emperor of Earth and Mountain. Lu Mingze destroyed the second brain in the dragon's spine and then posed in the air saying he had returned to rule the world. Not too far from the fight, Parsi and Caesar somehow found their way inside Nibelungen. They used the crossbow bolt to draw the creatures to their location and then eradicated them with a combined attack using their weapons. They were forced out of the dragon realm, so Caesar had no choice but to leave it all to Mingfei. The S-rank had returned to normal and had healed, but Zihang, he was unconscious. Fenrir, on the other hand, still had life in him. Mingfei was afraid and called out to Lu Mingze, but no one came. He saw the dragon spit out his sister. Fenrir hadn't eaten her. He was just keeping her safe. He nudged her, telling her to wake up so that they could go somewhere safe away from the bad people. Honestly, I felt sorry for Fenrir. The Emperor was harmless. The dragon eventually fell to the floor and turned into what looks like metal when his sister evaporated. Not long after, the dragon's Nibelungen began to collapse. Zihang woke up, but barely. He was muttering out to his father. Mingfei asked Lu Mingze to save him. He did so and healed his wounds without any cost. Somehow, Lu Mingze had transported Zihang to see his father, who was still fighting Odin. Time had paused for them to speak, and Tianjiao couldn't believe how much his son had grown. He informed the boy that the real briefcase was hidden in the Arctic and said that Zihang had the key. His father told him to get out of there and then froze in time again. Zihang flipped the spear that was heading for his dad and took it to attack Odin, but that is when the vision ended and a caduceus mark appeared on his palm. He woke up just in time. A train had broken through the rubble with the voice of Finger disguised as the baghead man telling them to get in. Finger had also made his way to Nibelungen and activated a train to arrive at their location. Mingfei picked up Zihang on his back for them to enter and escape. All the while, Nono was on a mission to find Mingfei and found out that his last known location was at the subway station. But when she arrived, she saw that Finger and Rin had already found him. For some reason, she seemed a bit sad and then run off before they saw her. Rin noticed the brief appearance of the mark on Zihang's palm and recognized it as belonging to the Holy Palace Medical Society, otherwise known as the Caduceus Organization. Meanwhile, Frost had received word about the death of the dragons and said that it was time to move the college into the next phase. Elsewhere, Baghead Finger reported to Henkel about what happened. The old man who saw Baghead Finger as his successor wanted to know why he was helping out Mingfei. The Baghead said that there was nothing special about the S-rank. He only saved him because he felt sorry for the loser. What I really want to know is who exactly is Finger. We cut to Zihang, who actually went to the apartment to find out how Yermungandr was living as Xiami. Everything he saw proved she lived a lonely life, and he wished things could have been different. After all, he fell in love with her. The next day, Mingfei took Rin out for a treat as an apology for not answering her calls during their hunt. She looked at him and got a flashback of her life at Black Swan Bay located in the Arctic. She, along with others, were being held captive. Dr. Herzog was lead scientist in the experiments being run on them. She had a strange vision one night that her cell door was opened by a black snake. Although it felt like a dream, she believed it to be true. When the orphans were allowed out to play the next day, she was busy looking for this snake. In the compound, Dr. Herzog was showing General Bondarev around the place. The general had come to take control of operations and was informed that the research being carried out involved the preservation of human DNA for cloning in case humanity got wiped out. Bondarev was a bit disappointed finding out that this was merely a gene bank. He felt there was more to it and decided to explore later that night. He found an old elevator that led him to the location of a frozen dragon that looked like Fenrir. Dr. Herzog was there to welcome him American style as he pointed a gun to the general. Bondarev wanted them to work together and promised to provide funds. He did warn that if the doctor eliminated him, then his people would expose the secret of Black Swan Bay. Herzog agreed and explained that he had found humans who had special abilities he believed linked to the dragons. His plan was to create a new world of these perfect humans, but he would control them by performing a surgery that severs the brain in half to produce two personalities. As crazy as that sounded, the general loved the idea, so they struck a deal to be partners. All the while, Rin was on her own exploration that night after the nurses forgot to lock her cell. She went looking for the snake, but instead found a locked cell labeled 0. The person inside ordered the lock to release, and Rin entered to see a boy heavily experimented on and strapped up. She saw he was unresponsive and gave him water to drink. He introduced himself as 0 since he didn't have a name, but he knew she was called Renata. After they agreed to be friends, he told her that he had two voices in his head, one good, the other evil. They both drove him insane. Rin cried for him after seeing his state, which 0 appreciated since no one had ever cried for him before. She asked about the black snake, and 0 told her it was his pet. He promised that on the next full moon, he would introduce her. When that day came, he kept his promise. He also took her out of her cell to the rooftop where she gave him a present. He wanted to return the favor and asked if she desired anything. Rin just wanted to leave this place and go home. She was fed up being there and didn't see any more joy in life. 0 assured her that there were too many fun things to explore, so she shouldn't think like that. He found out her birthday was on Christmas and promised to grant her her wish on that day. He told her they would break out together and would never forsake each other or be apart. They came up with a plan for that day and patiently waited. What they didn't know was that Dr. Herzog and Bondarev were also plotting to destroy the base and eliminate everyone there on Christmas Day. Since no one knew about the secret research, they wanted to get rid of all evidence and move it to a different location. After the destruction, they would report it as an accident, saying they were the only survivors. The day came, and Dr. Herzog had gathered everyone in a room for a party. He left and locked the room before gassing them with a hallucinogen. Everyone was affected apart from Rin, who escaped through a duct. Meanwhile, the doctor and Bondarev were getting ready to leave when the general shot him in the back. Bondarev didn't care about the research, he only wanted to take the dragon. His people transported it to the ship where Bondarev extracted one of its eyes. He knew a dragon was growing in that eye, and as soon as he touched it, he felt an intense pressure that made him drop it. Bondarev ordered that they freeze it at once. He didn't know it at the time, but he was in possession of a dragon emperor. The body of the dragon had turned into bones while the ship set off. Elsewhere, Rin had made it to 0. She set him free and escaped while explosives were being detonated. 0 seemed to be sedated and couldn't move on his own without guidance. They made their way outside where Rin called the sled dogs. She loaded 0 on the sledge and made it out of the main area before it was bombed and destroyed by fighter jets. She watched them fly off and was happy that she was finally free. But she had one problem. She didn't know where home was. One plane circled back and released bullets which eliminated the dogs. She saw that there was a transmitter on them which gave away her location. 0 had prepared a machine gun for her to use against the planes, but it was jammed. Rin knew it was all over for her. She cried, feeling sad that she wouldn't get to experience life as she got hit with 2 fatal bullets. Just when everything looked bleak, 0 woke up and walked towards a dying Rin. She reminded him of the promise of never abandoning each other. He was going to leave her there like a savage, but he decided to make a contract with her instead. He would save her life in exchange for her to be his loyal servant until he had no use for her anymore. 0 used a Yanling power that brought her back to life and declared that as her first present. He then floated up into the air and emitted a bright light before calling the dragon bones to his side. He, along with the creature, destroyed the fighter jets and then began his escape with Rin. Rin's flashback came to an end, and later that night, Mingfei had a meal with Zihang, where they talked about Caesar's upcoming wedding with Nono. He had proposed after rescuing her from drowning earlier on. Although Mingfei was hurt, there was nothing he could do. He felt she would be happier with him. He called it a night and went to bed remembering that another quarter of his life had been taken. That's when he was transported to his inner world. Lu Mingzhe informed him that he was going on vacation for a month, meaning that Mingfei would be on his own. Besides, he disclosed that where Mingfei was going next was outside his authority, so he couldn't even help if he wanted to. Mingfei was happy, since if he stayed there and never came back, he would never see Lu Mingzhe again. But it didn't work like that. The Devil Boy told him that a different agent more talented than him would be assigned to Mingfei. Lu Mingzi prepared to leave after fishing out a dragon saying it was his dinner. He told Mingfei to run away because the place was about to be destroyed. Lu Mingzi disappeared, leaving the S rank to fall through the cracks into an abyss. And that is where Season 2 concludes. Thanks for watching. Now go level up. I'll see you in the next recap. Peace.